Greetings.
Please, join my fight! Please, help me!
Yes.
Hooray!
Lesser beings intruding here? Such flammable little insects! Still standing?
Get him!
Burn, you miserable wretches!
Wicked!
You have no idea what horrors lie ahead. You have seen nothing. The frozen heart of Naxxramas awaits you.
Pathetic wretch!
Yourselves triumphant? You have only taken one step closer to the abyss. The dark void awaits you. Your petty matters are no challenge to the might of the Scourge.
Welcome everyone to the Undying Challenge, Blizzard's first ever official speedrun competition happening in World of Warcraft Classic. My name is Sarth, and today on the hosting desk, I am greeted by kind of some of the best players in the game, as well as some of the best casters in the game. On my right side, you can see I have Zyrene, one of the best tanks in the world. On the bottom right, we have our boy Crix, one of the best casters, and Hula Hoops right below me, one of the best healers. So we're going to have insights of every aspect of the World of Warcraft Classic kind of competition, or really the raiding world in general. Really fast, I do want to shout out to Platinum WoW, who just made that video you guys watched right before this. But today we're going to dive into this amazing speedrun challenge between two of the best guilds in the world. EU's #1 guild, generally Progress, and the North American guild SPACEFORCE. And there's going to be this amazing tension and this amazing race. Yesterday, we had a ton of fun, and they went in and gained a lot of their gear. Zyrene, do you want to give a quick rundown of what happened yesterday and what people missed if they didn't see it?
Yeah, if you didn't tune in yesterday, there was a heroic world tour. They could only do the heroics one time. They split into groups of 5, and then they tried to get as much gear as possible. Some people got a little bit luckier than others, but that's the RNG aspect, and that's why it's the Undying Challenge. It's going to have a little bit of RNG to it. It's not directly a competition, but this is a challenge issued to two of the best Western speedrunning guilds, one representing NA and the other one representing EU, one representing the Horde and one representing the Alliance.
Exactly. And Crix, looking at this roster we're seeing in the background right now, what do you think we're going to see today, and how are things going to kind of differ between the two guild rosters?
I think we're going to see the casters dominating the DPS on this one. Because both the demo locks and on both teams, the locks and their casters, because all they brought were locks and boomies, they're all insanely geared. They're some of the most, by far, the most geared people in the raid. Boomies kind of get lucky because they can wear a lot of the leather gear that nobody else is kind of wanting, and I think it's going to help a lot. I'm interested to see the tank thing though. Most.
Oh yeah,
yeah. The tanking thing's going to be very interesting.
Something absolutely amazing in the background right now. We can see kind of what the gear or important pieces that all of the entire raid groups kind of got. And you can see right there, Quasic. Quasic is actually going to be the main tank for the SPACEFORCE team. He does not have a new weapon, a new trinket, either of his trinkets, and he also doesn't have a meta gem. That is going to be extremely crucial. And also Nova directly below him, also no meta gem. That is also going to be their rogue, a huge DPS increase to have that 3% extra damage damage just from your crits alone, which is huge and adds up throughout the raids. What are you expecting, Hula, from seeing what people got with the gear yesterday to see how it's going to affect maybe even the healers themselves or even the rosters and the guilds?
I think having Quasic especially missing out on some key pieces of gear is going to have a pretty big impact, potentially on even their strategies going into Naxx. The healers are going to have to communicate efficiently on their external cooldowns, making sure they keep them alive. They're going to be used to going in and, their tank being pretty strong, pretty healthy, pretty able to keep himself up for the majority of it, but they're going to have to babysit him probably a little bit. We're really looking for these first two raids, the Eye of Eternity and Obsidian Sanctum, where they get to go in for another last chance of gear, and we are really hoping to see some key items drop for Quasic there especially.
Yeah, that's a great point. They're headed directly into the first two 10-man raids before going into Naxxramas. So before we actually see the race itself and before day 2 of the race begins, the guilds will be able to head into Eye of Eternity and Obsidian Sanctum, killing the bosses Malygos as well as Sartharion. Sarth loves to share a name with me. He's a little bit of a copycat. That's fine. I'll take it. Today, we're expecting probably most of the guilds to do a 2 Drake system where they get extra loot for it. It is probably potentially one of the hardest bosses in the game right now. Zyrene, looking towards you, they do have a little bit less tank gear on their main tank over in the SPACEFORCE team. Do you think this is going to cause any sort of a different strategy or issues, especially even starting out on these first early bosses?
Yeah, especially on something like Sartharion, because on Sartharion, if you're 2 Draking it, you'll be taking extra fire damage at some point, whether you are killing the second Drake or the third Drake, whichever one. They're going to add extra fire damage from his breath, and that's when you have to start using your cooldowns. And this is a 2-tank fight, right? So that means your off tanks are going to have to get involved as well. So one of their DKs and then their warrior or DK and paladin on the side of progress, that's going to be something I'm looking for here, is which are they going to have tank which? Because personally, I actually think that your better tank should be the one that's on the dragons, and then have your DK on Sartharion. Because they have the anti-magic shell on a 45-second cooldown, they can rotate that more frequently than any other class to deal with his breath. DKs are very good at tanking dragons in Wrath of the Lich King. It is their biggest strength. So that's what I think will happen here, but we'll see what they end up doing.
I think the one thing in 10-man Sartharion, trying to 3 Drake down 10-man Sartharion is so scary, so intimidating. And if you're not a DK main tank, you just get one shot, right?
Yeah, if you don't pop your cooldown. See, here's the thing. If you don't pop a defensive cooldown when he's using his breath, or you get sacked, or you get divine sacked, anything to stop you, you need some external or internal cooldown that's defensive to live. And the DPS needs to be high enough that that debuff on you for fire damage goes away before he does another breath or another one after that, because you're just going to run out of cooldowns if your DPS isn't high enough.
Yeah, these healers. Looks like these healers are blasting with their gear. All these healers are super
decked out,
which is good. This is really going to be helpful for Quasi too. Yeah, that's really good.
Quasi, that's going to be a huge key aspect in today's race, right? Yesterday, we had an entire heroic world tour where they completed all of the heroics and just kind of had to deal with what loot drops for them to get their upgrades. They're starting out with this vendor gear that is 187 eye level. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's max 187.
There's lower items.
Pretty much what you would get at level 78. If you're entering into these normal dungeons, anything that wouldn't really kind of bar you, every single item that dropped in a heroic was an upgrade for them. So not seeing any sort of meta gem drops because all of the helms don't have meta gems. We didn't see any of the really big trinket drops, which were very key yesterday and could have helped a lot of these actual groups yesterday very hard. The healers did get geared out, and as well, Crix, you saw a lot of the warlocks getting geared. Are you excited to see which demonology warlocks kind of take off? What are you really expecting to see at the top of the meters?
The boomies, and then the demos and the boomies. I'm not sure which one, because both those boomies are the most geared in all of the raids combined. Is the 2 boomies, and they're super stacked. Where you said where nobody got trinkets, I think as a nobody, so it's a good thing because it's even, because nobody really got trinkets, nobody got big weapons and stuff. Those locks are the casters just got really lucky on loot. Good luck on the loot, and then I think they're going to do great. And casters generally tend to do pretty well when they have lower on the gear scales in terms of the other DPS too. So I'm interested to see it. I also know rogues do a lot of damage early with low gear too, so I'm kind of excited to see the I'm a caster shill. We know this, but I'm excited to see all the DPS and see what they all look like.
I mean, we can see right now just what the Boomkins got themselves, and the Boomkins potentially got the most gear out of anyone in any of the raids. Hula, is there anything that speaks out to you? Looking at this gear set, is any of these classes gonna really shine today? The Boomkins being this gear, do you think it's gonna help their raids whatsoever in the actual overall? And how are they gonna kind of itemize moving into the raids?
I think with the Boomkins and the Demo Locks getting quite a bit of gear, I think that's really going to help with trash mobs, creatures, like, you know, the all the mobs that you have to hit on the way to the bosses. That's going to make a big difference in their speed, because typically speaking, that's the stuff that slows you down in a speed run, and getting to the bosses themselves. And I think the AoE damage that we're going to get from these druids, and especially the Demo Locks, is really going to have an impact on how fast they're able to get through those portions. It's also going to make it so the tanks could probably pull a little more, because they will die so much faster. Otherwise, it's going to be a little scary. Zareen, what do you think about that?
One thing I do want to note here is that if you look at the range slot over for Totu, he's already spent 15 of his badges on Idol of Steadfast Renewal, right? And Idol of Arcane Terror is the one that gives you the increased spirit off of Moonfire that Tetsu has right now. So some of these guys have already elected to spend some of their badges before they've even done Sartharian or Malagos. Whereas I know a lot of people are holding off on their badges. I believe they have 50, 51, which allows you to buy like Just Belt or just your, one of your other items. But it looks like we're starting here already with Malagos.
Right,
Yeah.
directly. Both guilds
Fight.
headed directly into Malagos. One of the most fun and unique fights in the entire
I love this fight.
any of Classic, right? And whenever this boss kind of knocks you up, you are going to see the Paladins do their concentration aura and aura mastery so that they can actually heal during this section or DPS during this section. So it does do like a bit of a stun, right? How does that work?
It doesn't
right?
always work. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't work for me. But you can see add-ons right there. You see he's got that thing where he can constantly cast while he's in the air there. And he's still able to do it. Actually, ghosting, I noticed there, he just went to 100 energy. You can actually fan of knives when Malagos is doing the vortex, and you can actually still hit Malagos with both your weapons and your poison procs. So when you're going to energy cap, just cast fan of knives. Yes.
You can get cast off too. Sometimes if you spam a cast, well, even if you have a short cast like Immolate in my example, sometimes it'll interrupt it, but if you keep spamming it, it'll get off sometimes. They got the sparks. You think they're going to stack these sparks? For those that don't know, the sparks give you bonus damage. What is it, 50, right? You can stack
50% bonus damage. Typically, you just want to bring them in, stack them, get that Venn diagram, and then you want to pop them.
They're in the middle, and there's the lust.
Oh, Quasic's dead. Quasic's dead. Quasic died over on the side of SPACEFORCE. He's
goes down as well. Quasic back up
there's that gear
instantly,
diff,
and
boys.
there's the bloodlust. That is going to be that's something that we really need to stress today. That this is going to be a huge difference right now between the two rosters. Progress's team got a lot of loot for their main tank, Windforce, and Quasi took a lot of damage yesterday. He actually took, or he will take a lot of damage today. He did not get any upgrades, only one upgrade the entire time. So they're trying to get this boss to 50%, where it moves on to phase 2, where you are dealing with actually kind of downing all of these little ads that he summons, these Nexus Lords. And this is kind of a fun part, because whenever you kill any of these Nexus Lords, they drop the little disc they're flying on, and you have this little flying skateboard. You can fly around the room. Yeah.
Like a hoverboard. Yeah, it's like a little hoverboard. The melee have to get on it, and they get on the ones that fall, so then they can hit the ones in the air. While you're trying to stay in the sparks, and then there's a big AoE you got to stay in these bubbles for, which make it a lot of fun. This is a fun. I think it's
really rocky on SPACEFORCE's side. They're getting Malagos really low though before he even does the second phase. Like this is where so basically what happens is Malagos will go up into the air at 50%, and that's where a lot of people pop lust, stand inside of the power circle, and then they just pump him, because it means you have to do less in phase 3 when you're on the little dragons. So if you get him down to like 35% instead of just 47, that's less you have to deal with later. So that's the only time you really get to push him is 50%. So something like retail mechanics, where it's like, hey, you hit a certain point, push him so that the next time he comes back, you don't have to deal as much damage in a different phase that's a little harder.
Yeah, it makes just things a lot easier for him.
And
Progress
Serene,
already moving into phase 2.
What's that, Hula?
Did we look and see whether or not Quasi actually got to the uncrittable threshold? Do we notice if that happened?
He should be uncrittable. I got uncrittable with just the gear that they had on the vendor, so he should be uncrittable.
Okay.
But he only got one upgrade yesterday, I believe. But then he's able to spend his badge stuff after this. But these breaths do a lot of damage to a warrior tank.
Yes,
You
they
don't
do.
have the same type of mitigation. You don't have Will of the Necropolis. You don't have Ardent Defender. So magic damage is one of your biggest weaknesses. And he's going to be taking that here as well as in Sartharian.
That's one of Warrior Tank's kind of biggest flaws always throughout World of Warcraft Classic, right? You never really have a way of mitigating magic damage. Not necessarily. Now you have, obviously, Spell Reflection, right? Which is a nice ability, but it does not actually work on all of the actual kind of raid mechanics, right?
Yep. Yeah, a lot of... Like, here's the thing, right? Is block is only good against magic damage, whereas stamina and damage reduction is going to be good against magic or magic damage and physical, right? Where block only works against physical. So there are some things that stamina is king, and then armor is usually considered your second best mitigation stat. But against dragons, they usually don't care, and that's why DKs are so good.
Car went down the shaman, and then he onked and then died again.
And he went down again. He did.
And
boy.
just to remind everyone watching, so right
This
now
is the
we're in Eye
Undying
of Eternity.
challenge.
This is the Undying challenge. But this part, the Eye of Eternity and Obsidian Sanctum, are still part of the gearing phase. So they're not racing now. They're taking their time. If they wipe, it's not an issue. The deaths are not going to count towards anything here. It's Naxxramas only, where they are going to start at the same time and be racing and speed running, and deaths are going to count for 30-second penalty on their overall timer. So this right now, yes, they're dying. They're having some struggles there, but generally speaking, this is still part of the gearing phase. So we're just cheering them on, hoping they get some great loot out of it.
Right, and Vargas getting the boss down first. One thing that's interesting that I think we should note for people, if you notice, a lot of the dragons on the left side of the screen were all kind of in sync with all of their kind of wings flapping. What you actually can do on this boss is if you type out or have a macro that / follows a character, and you have to type out their name because you can't target them. If you try to, you'll target their actual... Windforce actually getting a shield here.
Big shield.
Huge shield.
A lot of times if you follow someone, you can deal with a lot of the mechanics a lot easier if you're just following like one person and set them up to be the leader of this fight, especially during phase 2.
Tatsu with phenomenal boosts. Or Tatu, sorry. Not Tatsu. The other Bowie. Phenomenal boosts.
Barricade of Eternity is an incredibly strong shield. I believe it has more armor than you could get from the shields from the vendors. It has defense, parry, and expertise. And we know that Windforce got hit legs. He has hit hands. He has an expertise shield now. He is probably good to go in most of his stats, plus their alliance. So they'll have that 1% extra hit from having a Drain Eye. This is the prime position for a tank to be in. You're literally going to see night and day difference here. With this Paladin decked out and this Warrior, I mean, he is struggling.
He is going to take a lot of damage. We've already seen a third death over here on the side of Space Force, right here with Addy going down. It's easy to fall during this phase. It's going to be a lot longer in 10-man especially, where you still need the same amount of healers to keep everybody up, but you want to be keeping up this dot. There's this rolling dot ability that happens on Malygos during phase 2, where you cast actually 2 of your normal abilities that build combo points, kind of like a rogue, and then you stack this dot that kind of is a combo point spender. When you lose people during this fight, Zyrene, especially when you do like raid leading or helping things there, does it get a little bit scary, or is it still easy to kind of just like take it slow? What is the focus, and how do you change your strategy when dealing with phase 2?
So basically in Malygos, when somebody's dying, or you can have like, you could actually like 4-man this if you really wanted to when you got to this phase. It's just people have to keep dropping their fire stacks by using the defensive, because your offensive and your defensive abilities are tied to combo points, your invulnerability, as well as your stacking debuff that will go away if you don't keep stacking it. So once you have to use your combo points on yourself, you will typically lose your offensive stacks, and then your damage will go back down. So normally they assign healers to heal you and keep you up, but when you lose somebody like Addy and you just have Kerp around, you're going to start seeing people fall a little bit unless everybody's taking care of themselves. You can't rely on healers at that point. You have to be a self-sufficient dragon, and we're seeing some good loot here, actually.
Hailstorm!
That's a really good loot.
Oh my god, I'm getting so excited.
They need the shield. If it's the shield, then it's like the best loot they could have dropped for him.
We want to see a
Hailstorm-
second shield here for sure.
For people that don't know, this is phase 1 BIS for your Death Knights, for your Unholy DKs. And GX actually gets the necklace.
Insane
so
neck,
it is
yeah.
still a huge upgrade for the raid. The only thing that is kind of causing a bit of a chasm between the two guilds is the main tank getting loot. And not having that shield means Quasic will go in and buy the badge shield most likely, because he has not spent his badges to get that. But we did actually see that progress on the other side. Windforce did buy his badge shield, and getting the shield upgrade means that his badges were kind of a little bit wasted. Badge shields
He already
do
spent
cost
them, huh?
35 badges. Yep. He already
Oh,
spent
man.
them and equipped
here we
the
go.
shield itself.
Oh, that thing has hit on it, so it's usually like a safe bet. So that means he probably went for the Libram plus the shield, right? Because the shield is 35, the Libram's 15, you have 51-ish badges. So I'm assuming that was the combo we went for, because that Libram is BIS the entire phase, and it's only 15 badges. He would have wanted to potentially get the neck plus the Libram if he knew that he was going to get the shield.
What does the Libram actually give you as a protection paladin tank?
When you judge, you get shield block value, and you get a lot of it. And that's multiplied then by your shield block talent. That gives you more value, and then that goes into your shield slam. So it's an offensive and defensive thing where shield block will give you more damage, more threat, and it will also allow you to survive a lot more of the big pulls that they like to do.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like they're gonna. We're in Obsidian Sanctum now, which is the second raid where it's just a dragon you guys kill. But there's an option to do 1, 2, or 3 of these ad dragons. It looks like they're gonna kill Shadron. I was gonna ask you guys which one would you take out, assuming that they're doing 2 drakes.
It's this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
This
I think
is the
whenever
one that you
you're
normally
doing
take
it-
out.
Yeah, and if you don't if you don't fight any of these dragons and you pull the boss during the fight of the main dragon, these ones will come down and assist. Which each dragon that you get gives you more loot. Like if you leave 1 up, you get loot. If you leave 2 up, you get more loot. If you leave 3 up, you don't get any extra loot, but you do get a dragon. 100%
And you
get
get
one
a
of
dragon,
these dragons.
The best loot.
Yeah,
The reason that people
mount.
kill Shadron, though, is because Shadron comes down second. And Shadron has the annoying mechanic that makes Sartharian immune, and I believe also gives him the fire % damage increase. So you take away this guy so that you have more time to kill the first dragon. Because if you kill one of the other dragons, you'll always run into a point where if your DPS is a little low, which obviously with their gear it will be, you'll have 2 extra drakes down at the same time, whether it's number 2, 3, or it's 1, 2. So normally, if you just have Sartharian and you're doing 3 drakes, dragon comes down, there's no way they have enough damage to burn it before the second one comes down, so they killed Shadron, who's the second one. So it'll give them a bigger gap between Dragon 1 and Dragon 3, where you'll see them be able to kill the first one before they have to deal with another. And that's exactly what you want when you're under geared.
And it is scripted, right? So like you know exactly which dragon comes down in which order, right?
Yep. They are hard timers that you have to DPS check.
And so with this undergeared characters, but even I've seen a lot of times whenever you're doing a 2 Drake kind of situation here, even with gear, you kind of tend to kill Shadron as well. Just giving yourself that extra time is really nice. And it's also one of, like you were saying, the most annoying mechanics. Each one of these Drakes that flies down actually has a unique buff that it gives the boss itself when you're dealing with it, as well as the boss. And it also has a unique mechanic that you have to deal with. So killing Shadron just makes things a lot safer and a lot easier. And the only other scary one really is the reflect mechanic, I believe, right?
Yeah, the third Drake that makes it so that it's like a debuff that looks like Vampiric Touch, the Shadow Priest debuff, and it makes everybody take 75% more fire and shadow damage. And when you hit something, you take a thorns back, you take damage back. So they have to go into the portal, they have to have a portal party, go down there, kill the guy that's given the debuff, and then come back up and re-DPS everything. So normally you'll kill either Drake 2 or 3, or both of those. The first one's not that big of a deal. I think the third Drake also is the one that gives you the 25% less maximum HP. So like you walk in there as a tank with 40k HP, you think you're a big boy, and then you're down to 30k immediately. So that Drake, the third one, has one of the rougher debuffs.
It can definitely get spicy.
Yeah, I'd actually like a check on the HP totals of both of the main tanks here, if we could get that. because that's pretty important. A lot of people like big numbers. I like big numbers. I like the gem stamina. You know, I like to have a big HP pool. It makes me feel really good. So I would love to know what we have Windforce and Quasic at here, or Quasic at.
You know, one thing I'm interested in is
Mm-hmm.
how the tanks actually do deal with mitigation versus HP now, right? So there's obviously a lot of things. Now we have diminishing returns on things like dodge and parry. We were talking about that yesterday, and you were saying that, Zyrene. But now do tanks kind of focus particularly only on stamina, or do you also look at getting mitigation with your gem slots that do open up when you get some loot drops?
Okay, so I'm going to try to explain this as quickly and as succinctly as I can. Stamina and armor are king. The reason that they're king is because if you have 50% dodge and parry, I don't always have to interact with that as a boss. A boss could hit you 3 times and go through that. They have to do damage to your stamina. They have to do damage, if it's physical damage, to your armor. So your HP and your armor are the 2 most important stats that a tank can get, because they are always interacted with before you die when you're dealing with physical damage or even magic damage when it's stamina. Whereas parry and dodge aren't always interacted with. So you definitely want stamina. You gem stamina almost all the time. There's very few exceptions to that, whether it's meta gem activation or just trying to get a little more mitigation. And other than that, you typically get whatever you get dodge or parry wise from your gear, but stamina and armor are the 2 things you really want.
And we're seeing, actually, on the left side here, Progress is getting their first Drake down. They're on Tenebron. They're fighting the main boss here, Sartharion, and they do have 2 Drakes left alive. We have not seen yet which Drake that Space Force will kill, but we'll probably anticipate they'll kill the same one. But on this first Drake, we're seeing Progress go in and pump as much damage as they can on Tenebron. And this fight is one of the interesting ones where if you're playing anything like a pet class, which all of the warlocks, any sort of death knight, as well as any hunter, if you get hit or your pet gets hit by those flame waves that we've seen go kind of across the side. Oh, there's the first death there for ghosting. That is actually terrifying. Of course.
Void zone.
We're gonna have the battle res.
Void spawns.
Was it a
They
void
are killing their first Drake. I think it might have been a flame breath.
Could have been a flame breath, could have been a void zone.
I believe. That was a void zone.
At least it wasn't a wall.
You were mentioning earlier that this fight is fairly scripted in terms of which Drake comes down when, what their abilities are, those portals. The only real RNG factors in the mechanics are both the void zones. They just kind of show up randomly, various placements. You just need to keep your eyes up for those. You'll see them. They're the little blue circles on the ground, and basically if you stand in that, you die when it goes off. And the other thing is the flame wave. So they will come from either side of the platform in the middle. And depending on which side they spawn from, changes where the safe zones are. So if it's on the side where Sartharion's head is right now for Progress, then the middle, it will not be safe, and you need to make sure you move away from that. The far side, the middle, is typically the safe zone. And the Flame Wave, it hits pretty hard on impact, but it leaves a pretty nasty dot. And that's typically, as Sarth was mentioning, the pet classes. If the pets get hit, they're not surviving that dot without focused healing.
Yeah, pet. You need to turn the pet frames on, healers.
Yeah, I need to turn the pet frames on.
Coming from a pet class,
I promise.
It's very bad. It feels bad as a pet class. Hunters, I assume. I don't know how the Garys do, but it's bad as a warlock. You just got to call. It's just as simple as calling your pet back, right? That's all you got to do. But
I do want to take note of something here. Is what we see on screen is Progress here. Windforce was actually tanking the first Drake, and he was tanking the first Drake, and they had Xander tanking Sartharion. He popped his cooldowns, his defensives to live. They killed the first Drake. Windforce taunted Sartharion off. Yes, most bosses are tauntable in Wrath of Lich King. And he taunted off him, so he has his defensives available, and then they swapped. So they did a tank swap on who was doing what in the middle of the fight.
That's actually very crucial.
If you die...
That's actually very crucial that you point that out. That was something we were talking about earlier, right? Having your better geared tank on the Drakes are a little bit more scary, and generally you would usually start out with your DK tank on the main boss himself, like you were saying.
Exactly what they did.
And so seeing that swap is really nice. I think they're going to wipe it up. It looks... No.
They're inside. They're inside the portal.
I was like, that's crazy.
That
was scary.
They got you, man.
I was like, what are they doing? So it looks like they're still actually going to be safe. Ghosting has died twice here. potentially to void zones both times, and now we're seeing Space Force get onto the boss itself. Sartharion, both Drakes are down. He is enraged, and he's doing a ton of damage to the main tank, which will be Windforce. They will be rotating CDs, defensives from also Windforce himself, as well as from any of the healers to make sure that he survives from this Sartharion breath. And you can see Stead is using Misdirect here on the left side to make sure that any of these little ads that spawn go onto the main tanks or the tanks in general so that they can DPS down the boss.
You know what this fight is, Ghosting? If you die on this fight, it's just, you just died. There's some like light healing that goes out like this, but a lot of these
Maybe he's trying to get the
one-shot
achievement.
mechanics, it's you dying. It's all personal error on this fight, which is funny.
You can see that
Or he's trying to get the achievement.
Yeah, that's something that's very RNG. It's something we didn't touch on. There is an achievement here that's required to get the actual mount from the achievements of all of your dungeons, and it is to not get hit by any of these little flames you're seeing on the left side fly into the room.
The fireballs.
And they're so random. I got hit at 1%, but if you die at the beginning of the fight, you can just stay dead and let your team kill the boss. You will get the achievement. So that's all you have to do. The only reason I don't have the mount here and the title and everything is because I died at I got hit at 1% by one of these, and they're very random. You kind of have to get lucky.
My guild is working out who gets to die every week now, and they roll to see who gets to die and not get hit by the thing on like 100%. So yeah. Luckily, I'm already immortal in a Black Proto Drake owner, so I don't have to worry about that. But it was very hard as a tank. They usually don't let you kill yourself as a tank.
Let's see this loot. A lot of big loot options. There's a lot of loot. They drop a lot of loot on this boss, so I want to see what.
Yes, it is a lot of loot.
It's very
You're like, there's
right
a bag. It's going to give you some extra badges. I wonder if the extra badges will actually matter here.
It might for the threshold. What are they at? They're at 52 badges, right?
51 going into
51 badges, and then you've killed Malagos, which I think is another one, and then you've killed each Drake gives you another one, right?
Instead with the chest,
and then it might actually be a breakpoint for one of the classes.
Except no, on the 10-man raids you're getting valor badges, not heroism.
No. I think one thing they're very excited about and what they really do want is on the side of Space Force, on our right side, we definitely want to see Quasic get the ring. There's a tanking ring that's extremely powerful. Kia getting the Conqueror gloves, potentially putting them very close to getting even a 2-set. We might see something today where someone leaves the raid briefly and completes their 2-set bonus, but I don't think the gloves would be you need 80 badges. They can't get there now. Yeah, the badges won't drop from the raid themselves.
Look at all this on the right side. He's flipping around. Quasic just got ate a breath right now. He went down pretty low. This is the reason that your better tank usually tanks the Drake is it is an accident waiting to happen. It is a flip towards the raid. Tenebron is facing one way. The dragon comes down on the other side. You got to flip him again. It's really difficult to pick up everything. He's got the whelps on him too. It is very hard. It is a lot easier than it's a lot harder than they're making it look right now to do all of that. You're kind of like juggling 4 things while also standing on a unicycle.
Best teams in the game right now, though. That's why.
Yep.
That is also something I do want to touch on. We do see add-ons getting the fist weapon there, which
not good.
Relatively helpful, but not really, right? That doesn't really do anything.
The DE right there, right?
Yeah, that's a vendor. That's a vendor item.
These 2 guilds that we're seeing right now, if anyone doesn't know the classic World of Warcraft speedrunning scene, Progress on the left side traditionally has been kind of like the version of Nihilum or Method or now Limit. They have always been the top guild for the most part in progression, in clearing the raids, and also competing for speedruns. They've always been in every single phase within the top 1 to 4 or 5. So Progress has been kind of a powerhouse of Classic. And then on the right side,
down to 5?
Right now, I don't know if I have 5 on here. I'm like
I would say probably top 3. I don't know if they've ever fallen below that. There might be a time, but they have just historically been very good and very serious about progression.
It's okay because we beat them by 1 second in OG Naxxramas, so I'll take that.
True. See, there's a lot of guilds that care about like progression, and then there's some like my own that are just like, we don't care about progression. Honing the speedrun is what matters. And it's the same thing with noobs, right? They usually don't compete on progression. Exactly. They're like, let the people use all their little tricks and get like max level as fast as possible. We're gonna fine tune our strategies over time.
I think throughout the phases, since the beginning, progress, other than obviously Apes was the fastest to hit level 60 within like 4 days of Classic launch. Progress was next. Every single phase, Progress, other than Blackwing Layer, where they actually tied for World First by the exact second, the only reason why they technically didn't win was because it was the first time where things were released on the NA servers first before the EU servers. And since then, Progress has always been right there. And then looking at SPACEFORCE, as we're seeing right now on screen, this has been a guild that was established at the very beginning of World of Warcraft Classic, but starting in the Burning Crusade expansion, they decided they were going to take speedrunning very seriously when Kerp kind of took over as the head. And now they are really, really at the forefront of the speedrunning scene. They have kind of been North America's #1 or premier guild, and for the Horde, they've been the premier guild for the Horde. None of the above switched over, but a lot of these guilds are very close, and towards the end of the Burning Crusade, they were within a minute of having these world records of each other, kind of every week switching off which guild was going to be the best. So right now, today, we are really watching two of the absolute best guilds in WoW Classic really going head to head.
Yeah, and I know that Kerp has been very aggressive with his recruiting. The former main tank that I took over for when I like had joined and was off tank for like a few weeks, he actually went over to SPACEFORCE and played healer for them. And Kerp even reached out to me at some point to try and poach, but very aggressive in terms of they want the best players that they can have. And it's a very, very competitive roster too. Your slot is not always guaranteed. So, and then the same thing with Progress, right? They are always looking for the best players they could get. And I know that is something that even this here, it's always a recruitment opportunity. Oh, we got it on screen.
Ooh.
Lost Conk.
I know, like all I wanted
Signet
was
of the Accord.
that.
Okay, that's something. That's something.
Oh, it did drop. Then we're good then. All right.
Yeah.
That is one of that is a huge thing. They needed tank gear to drop. That was essential, was some tank gear. They did not get any protector loot, which again would have also been a very large upgrade. Splitting this up is big, but there is the big difference between the two teams right now within the gearing section is definitely going to be where the tank gear is gone. And GX, being their kind of main demonology warlock, is getting the Conqueror gloves, and we'll see what drops in the raids. And how are these tier bonuses? Crix, you would know especially, how are these tier bonuses when they do move into Naxxramas right now? Is it worth it to leave the raid for a split second and come directly back in within like something like 30 seconds to get a tier bonus for the 2 set? Or I wouldn't really anticipate them getting a 4 set, but is that possible?
It's not worth it it's not worth to get to 2 set for Boomy. I mean, not for Boomy, for Demo. You want the 4 set, but they're not going to be able to reach that 4 set, I don't think. Too hard to get it all in there. You definitely, that 2 set's not important at all. The gear, but that glove itself has good stats on it. That glove itself, he's going to wear for the stats, whereas you normally wouldn't if you had the proper gearing, right? And then for the Boomy, the 2 set for the Boomy is actually very, very big, and it's insect swarm by 10%, and that's their main dot. So if the Boomies can get their hands on 2 set, which I don't think they will, but that's very big for them. But yeah, not for Warlocks that much.
Okay. And I actually just got word from Critias that he actually disconnected for the first whole minute of that fight. And so he was the main off tank dealing with the ads, or actually he was tanking the boss at the beginning.
He was Sarn, yeah.
And he actually was DC'd for that whole beginning. And SPACEFORCE over there keeping him alive, not making sure that anyone pulls aggro, doing a really good job of having no one die. Whereas on the side of Progress, we did see a couple deaths actually. So that kind of bodes well for them looking towards these raids today, that they can kind of deal with these unexpected issues. And that's something that any of the top guilds will always be extremely good at dealing with. And at the bottom of the screen right now, we can see the actual gear sets from, or gear upgrades, we can see them from the actual 2 guilds. Right now from Progress, Hula, what are you seeing at the bottom? Who has the most upgrades, and what do you think it really means for us moving into the race in Naxxramas starting in a few minutes?
Well, not surprisingly, we talked yesterday and this morning a bit about how the Moonkins and the Warlocks got a significant amount of gear. And as you can see, they're both at 11 of 17 upgrades. That's going to make a huge difference. Add-ons and Kia, the 2 healers, also with a significant amount of upgrades, so they were able to get quite a bit of gear, which is great because a lot of the gear we also saw drop for them, while, you know, being a direct upgrade in item level and player power, also had way better optimized stats. The stats on the vendor gear were not great, specifically for the paladins. A lot of crit, which is at this position, at this gear level, not what you're looking for. They wanted to get a lot of, they want some more haste to get a little bit more throughput and a little bit more MP5 for the mana sustain. So they did really well there. Again, we're seeing Quasic with just the 1 upgrade. I guess 2 now, since he just got the signet, so that's going to make a difference. And I assume he's probably going to spend his badges as well, get another upgrade there.
Probably on the shield.
One thing I do want to call... Yes, he'll be buying the shield for sure. One thing I do want to call out as we go into Naxxramas, so that the 2 guilds are going to be starting at the same time. This is the race, right? There's a timer. They are speed running. This is the winning and the losing. You know, this is going to determine who's the best 10-man, speed running. And I do want to reiterate, we mentioned this yesterday, that this is an introduction to speed running. You know, these are 2 of the best guilds in the world, but they are 25-man guilds. They've kind of put together a 10-man roster for this. They're not going super, crazy with it. So this is just an intro. We just wanted to give everyone a little flavor of what speedrunning is like on Classic. So this by no means an effort of saying this is the best, speedrunning guild in the world. It's more of an introduction. So, watch, learn, love.
Exactly. Like, dispel all illusions here. Blizzard doesn't think 10-man is the most competitive format, right? This is a challenge issued to the top 2 Western speedrunning guilds against each other head-to-head. It's some good old-fashioned fun.
Yeah, and we're seeing the race rules on the screen right now. This is a 10-man raid, and we have the exact speedrunning rules that we have been given from Warcraft Logs. Warcraft Logs has history. The teams must clear all of the designated trash packs, or not even trash, just everything within the raid that is within the rules of Warcraft Logs. And we're seeing it in the background. You can see exactly what they need to kill, things like 20 eye stalks after clearing out the Hagen dance. So there is requirements to clear a lot of the raid and make sure that they clear all of it. And also, the thing that we're going to see today is how they decide to deal with everything. Because saving time when you have to clear all of the trash packs really is where we see the kind of ingenuity within speedruns. So Irene, I'm curious what you're thinking. What are some of the crazy pulls we might see today, or what might you expect some of the guilds to pull off that we will see in speedruns later in this phase?
So the thing that's immediately going to signal to me, are these guys serious about trying high risk, low reward stuff, is the Fairlena Giga pull in the middle of your screen there. That woman next to her room, that one there, that's the one that I'm thinking, if you are clearing the right side of, there's the little pink line in the middle, people are clearing that at the same time. You have a paladin setting up that teal and yellow room in the middle. And when you're done killing all that stuff on that pink area, you run over there, everything's grouped, you run your warrior, you run your tank in, and you just blast it all down as fast as possible. So you do a simultaneous pull while you're setting up another one. That's what I think SPACEFORCE, if they're here to play, if they're here to gamble, if they're going to try to get ahead because they don't have the best gear on their tank, this is how you do it with the warrior. Whereas I think that Progress, they don't really have to take that same risk.
Really? The crazy thing is that poll itself was the scariest poll in World of Warcraft Classic history. In OG Naxxramas, this poll that we just saw zoomed in, this was terrifying. If one thing went wrong, there was this old strategy where you would invisibility pot there, and you would have to use sapper charges because not every class had actual AoE, which we do have now. And if you timed your sapper charge half a second earlier than the rest of the raid, everybody would die. Everybody would die. You had to be exactly perfect. And
there are clips everywhere of everybody messing up. There's been a warrior who changed stance while he was invisible and broke his invisibility. There's been so many clips of people messing up that poll. And it's really funny because if your computer is not like a higher end computer, as soon as you as soon as they aggro and start casting, it's a slideshow for like you get one frame every 6 seconds. And I'm like, did we kill it? Okay, we killed it. It's like, okay.
I'm wondering if you can, with Quasi's level, can they pull all that? With his gear?
Well,
You
he's
think
just
he
going
can
to
hold
stun
that on?
all of it, right? You're going to have your Holy Paladin set it up with bubble. So I assume Kerp is going to go in there with his bubble, and then you're going to have it all grouped. You're going to have Quasic charge. As soon as his charge makes contact, things are casting on him. He uses Shockwave and stuns all of it, and that's where everybody has time to blast it. You can potentially silence it. I don't know if they have arcane bombs or anything afterwards, but any follow-up stuns, war stomps, whatever they might have, could be useful. I don't think I saw any Taurens though. I know Quasic plays Tauren, and he told me he was, but he's playing Orc today, I think.
As we're looking at the
Yeah,
trash
I believe
routing
so.
and the trash requirements here in the background, I'm curious, especially Zyrene, you do a lot of these speedruns as well. And what do you think the route these guilds will take when they enter into Naxxramas? How will they kind of deal with it? Because there are 4 different wings that you could start technically at any one of the wings.
Yeah. So in terms of like Warcraft logs requirements, they've thrown down a few things, right? You can no longer take the spore buff from the last boss in Plague Quarter Lotheb into another boss. So Plague Quarter as your last one is never going to happen anymore into Sapphiron. That is just completely thrown out. But it means that there's going to be more variety. But I do believe that the thing I'm almost certain about is that Plague Quarter will always be followed by military. You want to have the
Yes.
Lotheb spore buff for as much trash as possible, and that's going to be the military quarter where you can just run in there and use it very quickly. So yeah, you see the beginning there at the top right. That's a lot of trash. You can use a spore buff that gives you crit and makes it so you have no threat from the previous boss. You can run through that with a huge buff on you and try to clear as much of that trash as possible. That's the only thing I'm really certain of. Personally, I like to do a little bit of the patchwork first. I like the patchwork test, you know? I like to
Yeah,
get
the
that out of the
scary
way.
bit.
Oh, yeah. And also Patchwork and Thaddeus. Technically, in Naxxramas, only 2 bosses mechanically require 2 tanks, and that is Patchwork and that is Thaddeus. Those are the only 2. Patchwork for Hateful Strikes and Thaddeus for the beginning with Stalag and Fugan. Everything
And they're
else
the
you
same
can
wing.
single tank. So
If they start there, then they can easily swap whatever off tank they've been dealing with directly into DPSing for the rest of the raid, right?
Yep, exactly. So he can just do a respec at the end of it and then never have to go back. They all have access to dual spec, right? Just like on live. And they have set those up with their gear sets as well as their talents and glyphs.
And you actually, routing can be a huge difference here between speedruns. It's always been a way of kind of saving time, is coming up with what could technically be a better route, what could technically save you time, because there's 4 different ways you can enter. And moving into this wing, back at the end of Classic, what we used to see is this boss here on the top left, Thaddeus, used to give you this buff if you were standing around everybody with the same charge as you, either negative or positive, kind of like a battery. If you're standing around them, you would get pretty much like 100% extra damage or DPS, and you would actually just destroy Sapphiron and move from Thaddeus directly into the second to last boss, and it was killed in like 24 seconds. It was a scary thing to deal with, but it was phenomenal. Now, after you kill this boss, that buff actually goes away. So the only buff that lingers very long after you've killed it is the Lotheb buff that we talked about earlier, which you get crit actual. So you're pretty much at crit cap, and you're always critting all of your abilities, and then you're also cannot build any threat. So that's why we really think, or you were saying you really think, and I think so as well, is that everybody will use that buff and move it into military wing, because you start out with the most densely populated trash packs at the beginning of the military quarter. Now, looking at any of the quarters in general, is there any of these bosses you think will be the most challenging? I'm going to ask you, Hula Hoops, any of these bosses you think are the scariest, especially considering the gear sets that everybody has gotten from the heroics yesterday?
Absolutely, Patchwork is the biggest gear check of this raid. It is the easiest boss mechanically, absolutely. We were talking earlier about how whenever you do a sim on your characters to find out your best gear set, your DPS, there's a patchwork option, and that's literally characters standing still hitting their buttons. There are no mechanics required to patchwork, but it is the biggest gear check. He hits incredibly hard. And so the tank and the off tank are going to be getting the direct hits as well as the hateful strikes. And this is going to be the big one for the tanks especially, and the healers to be able to carry that one. Other than that, I think Thaddeus could potentially be an issue, depending if they're opting to solo heal or use the 2 healers, depending on how they're going to split the sides. You can solo heal Thaddeus as a paladin with the beacon. You need to make sure that you are healing both tanks at the same time. But generally speaking, I think in the construct quarter, patchwork is going to be the issue. Globulus, potentially, if they don't get out with the debuff, with the disease, that actually hits pretty hard on 10-man, surprisingly. But I think both of these guilds are phenomenal players, and they're not going to have any issues with the mechanical issues, the strategies. I really think just based on the mechanical skill of all these players, it's the gear check bosses that are going to be the potential issues. So we're watching patchwork for this one.
You think everybody's going to make the Thaddeus jump? That's the real question. That's the real question everybody's wondering is somebody going to fall off that Thaddeus?
I don't know what you're talking about. That's not even a real thing.
That and Hagen dance.
Look at these warlocks in the background. Crix, let us all know, what are these important items that a lot of these warlocks have? Is there a huge gear difference? We can see the eye level themselves, but that's not necessarily exactly representative of how strong some of these items are. So what are some of the big pieces that some of the warlocks have looking between the 2 guilds?
The biggest pieces you can see is they all got Sundial, which is what I would get. That's what everybody would get, it seems like. And I would say out of the warlocks, you have both of them with the Cursed Lich Blade, which is phenomenal because it has a spirit. And they're all 3 demo, right? But out of SPACEFORCE has 2 of them, so their demonic pack buff will just override each other, whatever one is stronger. But it's going to probably be GX's who's going to be strong because he has more spirit, more spell power for it. Girdle of Bane is massive with hit, spell power, and spirit on it. It's absolutely huge. They all, or 2 of them got that. The Azure Cloth Bindings that GX and Weasel got are huge. They got lucky with the Horseman Seals, which I guess is not too lucky because they drop a lot, but that's very big as well. The weapons, they all have weapons, which is huge, which is very big, especially how Decal has the Staff of Draconic Flight, which is haste. I would assume that you're going to see Decal more on the pumping side of things, and Weasel and GX are going to be more trying to buff everybody up with Demonic Pact, which is a demonology only raid buff. That takes 10% of your current spell power at the time that it takes a snapshot and gives it to the entire raid, which is it's the biggest raid buff in the game. It's why you bring them in there, because it buffs all the casters, which obviously there's not too many casters because it's a 10-man, but it also buffs their healers, which are also stacked with gear almost more than everybody else. So they're really going to be helping out a lot with this. And Demo does amazing damage even with low gear. So I'm very excited to see it.
And there's 2 things that I think are really key here, right? First of all, everyone has the same second trinket, the Tome of Arcane Phenomena. No one got the huge trinket from the actual Heroic World Tour that they all wanted, which would have been from Violet Hold. But you did just mention snapshotting, and I know this is a mechanic we did talk about yesterday briefly. It is a very important mechanic in Wrath of the Lich King. Could you just briefly kind of explain that to everybody watching so that they know what snapshotting is and how it's important, especially here for the Demonology Warlocks?
Yeah, it's a little bit bigger with like Affliction or like Unholy and stuff like that, but in case of the Demonology Warlocks, is they have a Demonic Pact buff, and snapshotting is just pretty much taking a picture, if you can, of your stats. In this case, whenever the Felguard crits, it's going to take a picture, snapshot, the current spell power of these warlocks at the time, whoever it was, and then it's going to give 10% of that to the entire raid, right, for 40 seconds. And then you can update as it gets, but it only overrides if it got hit by a bigger buff, which is nice. Whereas like a Affliction Warlock with Corruption, a Shadow Priest with Shadow Word Pain, those 2 dots carry over crit percentage and damage modifiers like Tricks of the Trade, Earth and Moon, Curse of the Elements or whatever, and it will snapshot that into those dots.
Thank you so much. One thing that's crazy, and I apologize for getting distracted by this, I just noticed that Weasel and GX actually have the exact same gear. Every single piece is the exact same piece. So they actually do have some very, very close. They will be the two that will go in and do the big buffs for the raid. The one you were just mentioning, the Demonic Pact, that will snapshot. And anyone else wondering, every class, not maybe every class, but most classes in Wrath of the Lich King Classic do have this opportunity to really have a big ability that they would use early on in a fight, and whatever buffs they are rolling early in that fight will use or utilize, making sure that that ability is stronger throughout the entire time. Now, Zyrene, we're seeing the race rules in the background. Can you just break them down for everyone one more time before we head directly into the Naxxramas speed race?
All right. Yeah, it's the Undying challenge here. I know there's a title called Undying where you can't die on bosses, but it's a little more stricter here. You have to abide by the Warcraft logs speedrun community clearing guidelines. So you have to clear all of the mobs that are stated on the website in order for your logs to be validated. This includes some patrols. They recently revamped that about 4 days ago to not include the shades. So you don't have to do those, but you do have to get things like the Geists between Gluth and Thaddeus and a few other patrols that might be a little out of your way, but it's to prevent pre-clearing. Teams must clear all the designated packs and any death during the raid. This includes a Frogger death. Besides a G-kick, it's 30 seconds more on your time. So means you're going to have to watch out. Any deaths on trash, any deaths here. You're seeing Kerp immediately starting, SPACEFORCE starting with a Gigapole here. The Paladin, the raid leader setting it up. Here comes Quasic here, expecting the shockwave right here. There it is.
There it is. Directly into the shockwave, directly into this AoE stun, and that's really the strength of that protection warrior, right? It gets this a ton of AoE threat and also has this actual CC that makes it so that the trash can't kill you. So that huge pull there from Kerp, they did not actually use his rocket boots, and Progress on the left side, you're seeing them use rocket boots to move directly into the trash pack. They're all both starting with the Spider Wing and pulling a Nubricon, starting a little bit faster here to pull the first boss, but also actually being at the exact same amount of trash cleared. They all have.
See, they're pulling the trash into it, right? Also, these timers, obviously, it looks like that was the time that they zoned in, not the time that they started the run. So we'll get more updated ones soon. But yeah, a Nubricon already down to about 2/3.
And that's already, we're seeing a difference in strategy, right? We're seeing where SPACEFORCE sent Kerp in to group everything up, and it looked like Progress actually sent Ghosting a little bit to send everything back with that actual Tricks of the Trade to their main tank and pull things into a Nubricon.
Yep. And they did their initial Gigapole as well, and that was with Windforce just setting it up. The prop Paladin able to do his own Gigapole and not have to rely on a Holy to do it for him. Also, I think Spiderwing, they might be starting Spiderwing here because you can use the loot that drops, right? And there are good things in Spiderwing for tanks. So Quasic might be able to get something here very early on to set him up so that he can do patchwork a little bit easier. You want to get as much loot as possible before you have to get that gear check. Also, it looks like they've caught up a little bit here. SPACEFORCE, they were way further behind on the Nubricon's HP.
Big DPS.
Right
Look
now.
at the DPS difference right now. Big
SPACEFORCE
DPS
looking very, very solid. Again, on the side of Progress, we're seeing two DKs. We're seeing a Frost and an Unholy Death Knight. And then on the side of SPACEFORCE, we're seeing two Warlocks. And both of those Warlocks doing incredible DPS in the fight. And Drekar, actually, they're seeing crazy DPS. Oh, Julius getting the boots. And Add-ons also getting the boots. Two really nice drops. And Critias also getting the boots, which are going to be really helpful. They're getting all a healer boots or a healer item and some DPS items for their Death Knights.
Also, keep in mind the trash requirements. You might have to skip some of this. You got to pull all those skitterers. They're pulling this entire room here together, and you got to kill those skitterers. So we're looking at, if you were looking at speed runs before, those are glitch, skips, etc. This in Wrath of the Lich King is basically 100% glitchless runs. You got to kill almost everything to get through this and validate your logs.
Also, notice that the priests are playing Shadow right now. Both of them. Full Shadow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kia marked Shadow for the last boss.
He probably did enough DPS to be called that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's see here if they do it. I don't think they're going to do a Gigapole on Windforce side.
I don't think it's smart to. I think you take 2 packs.
Progress taking it easy. This is where
Kerp.
He is low.
We were thinking earlier. This is where we were thinking earlier to see if they would actually be scary. But on the right side, we do have the Gigapole happening. Kerp doing a giant pull. Everything.
This is so risky. This is so risky. If you miss this shockwave, because you can buffer your shockwave incorrectly, there it is. He hit all of them.
Oh, if a death happens here, if they were to wipe on that pull, which could happen without a good stun, it would have been a 5-minute addition to the timer. So now they've actually fully caught up, where Progress and Space Force are almost head-to-head, neck and neck, ready to go into Grand Window Arena. And we are seeing Addy is potentially fully Shadow still. Kia as well looking like they're Shadow. So now it's really going to come down to boss DPS that's going to set them ahead and moving on towards the next trash pack.
It actually looks like they're pretty neck and neck.
Go on, Hula.
I'm glad to see that both teams felt confident enough in the gearing that both the tanks and healers and everyone got really to be able to solo heal at least this first wing. You know, the bosses in the Spider Wing are not super dangerous for tanks. The only one we might be looking at is Naxx before the web wrap comes. But as long as they're smart with their externals and their defensives, that shouldn't be an issue. I imagine we're going to see, you know, with the addition of dual spec in the game at the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, I imagine we're going to see the priest swap back to disc for some of the harder bosses. But I'm really excited to see this. You know, solo healing 10-man as a Holy Paladin is just fun and exciting. It's constant. You have to be on your toes. You're constantly healing. It is just a really fun thing to do. So I'm really glad we get to see this happen from two of the best Holy Paladins in the game right now. Well, players generally.
Oh, what's Kia doing here?
Kia is respecking. Kia
That's a
did
respec.
just respec. That was a full swap. We're going to see if Addy does the same. Space Force on the right side here actually does still have to deal with these two Venom Stalkers. That Progress did get the pull in earlier on. So instead of being able to instantly rocket boots to the next pull, that is actually going to cost them a little bit of time. They're going to rocket boots right now on the right side for Space Force, but Progress is slightly ahead here just because they were able to get that pull. And that is actually another thing that is RNG. It will happen within any sort of speedrun situation where it is kind of up to whatever the patrol is doing. And we do see
off right now, and they're working on it right now, but you can see down there on the bottom where it says the boss timers as well.
Yeah, we'll get an update for Alina there. You see, that's how long it took them to kill it. Actually, you see, Space Force took a lot shorter to kill Farlina, and the Gigapole actually put them pretty far ahead of where they were. They were behind. They're still behind, but they've been doing some Gigapoles here to try and make up for it.
Yeah, they caught up there
because they had Bell Silence, right?
It kind of
and the Shockwave is just really nice.
That makes a difference.
They're using Aspect of the Pack, a really nice patrol there. They didn't have any of the eye stalks or the shades that we were talking about earlier, the invisible mobs, to really slow them down on the side of Progress. On the left side, they actually gained a ton of speed there, getting all the way up the ramp with Aspect of the Pack for the entire group. And you're seeing Ghosting moving ahead every time and using something like Tricks of the Trade to pull everything, and rocket booting towards the next pack, because that is another pack that's required. This is going to be a huge pull for Progress that will end up saving them a lot of time, making sure that they're bringing that back to them. And we're going to see if Space Force does this again in a second.
It's going to get blasted.
Terrifying! Oh, that was so scary!
They did it.
Oh, that
was so
close.
They had somebody else get aggro on it too, so he could vanish and it would go back to him, because I think his tricks, he already activated it, and I think it wore off by the time he made it to the pack.
I think so as well. Yeah, that was a scary, scary pull over there on the side of Progress, but they are moving in directly towards Naxx, the last boss of the first wing. They have cleared all of the trash they need so far, and they are going to see everybody kind of sit down and drink. They already have done their swap on this side, and I don't think we have anyone. Okay, on the left side, or on the right side here, we can see Malix going ahead as the hunter puller to grab the rest of the next pull. So they do need to get this, and it looks like they necessarily do need to get these Venom Stalkers is the big part of this, which is a patrol, but Progress already at like 80% on the boss Naxx. And what are the scary mechanics on this boss that they have to worry for, especially you, Hula Hoops, who is a healer who has to kind of be a little bit afraid of this boss that can kill your tanks quite easily?
Yeah, the web wrap is a mechanic that where the entire group gets wrapped up, and you can't bubble out of it. You can't do anything. Yep. You are just stunned. And there it is right now. It's the web spray. And during this, Naxx is still hitting your tank the entire time. So you need to proactively treat that with either an external cooldown, defensive pop-up, and she does enrage at the end, which also just makes it hit that much harder. There's also Poison Dot you want to dispel ASAP. So we did see add-ons actually get the cocoon back in the end instead got him out ASAP, which is good because he's able to focus on the healing and the dispelling. But the web spray is absolutely the scary mechanic. I imagine that's why Kia went back to disc for this fight, just for the additional external cooldown of pain suppression, which is a very strong external damage mitigation. And
I absolutely want to add on to that, is that Addy is still Shadow. So Kerp is the only healer on this fight still. So if he gets web wrapped, then Quasic's going to have to pop cooldowns early.
Yeah, it's going to be really huge for the group to actually break him out instantly if he does get web wrapped, right? That would be kind of terrifying, especially as you're getting towards this, 30% where the boss enrages, right?
Ooh, Makes that can drop some really good loot. Let's see. That can help out a lot right now. That can help out a lot right now.
Oh.
So we're hearing that the time offset is about 3 minutes and 20 seconds. So that means currently Progress is about 10 seconds ahead, and they are moving directly into this flight quarter where they are going to end up with Lotheb, meaning what we thought earlier potentially would be that they will move into military right after this. We're going to have to find out and see, but it most likely will be military right after this. And you did see on the left side that Stead did pull that far trash pack on the left, the group of the ghouls as well as these little slimes. Oh, that's scary too.
Oh, man.
The ghouls and the slimes, because you do need to clear, like we were mentioning, all of this. And this is a huge pull on the side of Progress.
And look at SPACEFORCE. They're doing it
SPACEFORCE
right
going to
now.
do the same thing.
Yep, they're about to do a big one right now. Look at them.
They're doing another bubble pull. Oh, no, it's Quasit. Quasit's going in. Yeah.
The place slime's a little bit difficult for you to pick up as a warrior here randomly. They're very slow. They're hard to group.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like they're just going
to... You can kind of kite around in a circle because they move extremely slowly and they can be immune. They change immunity to whatever spell kind of school that they are immune to. So you can see that some of them are blue right now, some are red, so they'll be immune to either fire or frost damage. And you do have to kill these gargoyles before they end up casting their actual regeneration. As you can see on the left side, one got very close to casting that. These stone skin gargoyles will actually regenerate. I think at 10 man, it's only about like 40% HP. Somebody could correct me on that. But in a 25 man situation, if one of these gargoyles does hit that actual timer, it is a huge time loss, where for 10 seconds they are regenerating HP and you can't DPS them down.
Oh wow. So what ended up happening here is there's 15 stacks on the side of Progress here. They're actually stopping down to deal with this. This might actually be a way that they get a little bit of time back here on SPACEFORCE's side if they risk the next one here, because they're only going to have about 10 stacks each. Tops.
Mm-hmm. And with that, if they lose 5 seconds
they're gonna keep
by
going.
sitting down and drinking, that definitely means that they are being caught up to right now, right? And SPACEFORCE also saving the time. SPACEFORCE also saving the time because they'll probably now end up pulling directly into the boss, go into Noth, would be the way that they can kind of catch up here. They're only actually about 15 seconds, not even behind. So if they pull these directly forward and move into Noth with these stacks, it is a little bit scarier. They are playing also with one healer, so their boss damage should be higher, which we will see in a minute.
It's where they're making up a little bit of the time.
Shadow.
And we did see the add-ons actually went into this fight with almost 0 mana, and he has almost half a health pool now, so we actually see him in melee. He's likely hitting the boss for those Seal of Wisdom procs to gain mana. Absolutely. The mana return for that is pretty exceptional. So that plus Divine Plea, he might have gotten the Innervate as well, giving him quite a bit of mana back. So that makes the speedrunning with the Paladin as your healer really great. You don't have to stop and let them drink the entire time. They can get this mana back in combat. Additionally, Noth is not a high damage fight.
No.
If you have enough boss damage, you're basically just single targeting him down. If you can get him before the teleport and then the ads come, there's not a lot of outgoing damage on this fight. Typically, healers DPS during this fight and just throw the odd heal out. But
this
generally
is technically
speaking, that's a good one.
This is technically a 2-phase fight, and if the boss actually reaches the second phase, he teleports away for like a minute where he's summoning these extra ads. That is actual death for a speed run. If you have to deal with something like this where you're changing into a second phase, this is one of the biggest time losses that could possibly happen. And on the left side, we did see Progress defeat this boss before they had to deal with Noth actually teleporting away. That is a huge, huge time save. And
so like a minute and a half, it's huge.
And Space Force doing the same thing, going for that time save. They need to down this boss for 23 seconds from now, where Noth would actually teleport. That time adds up so incredibly significantly over anything else in the raid if you see an extra phase there.
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
Go on,
Also,
Rick.
big thing here, just to note, they are on the same route. Just say, screw the timers. Just look at where they are in the raid, right? Like, they just killed Noth. They're behind by the gauntlet. That's about 20 seconds or whatever. It's just pretty much going to come down to whoever kills the last boss first. The times are pretty much going to be irrelevant.
You barely got that off before the teleport went. You see that? That was like a half a second.
Space Force getting crazy damage out here from the Rogue, and also Drekar coming in with massive DPS. Space Force did use their actual rocket boots here, which we didn't see on the side of Progress, I believe. Stead able to use his rocket boots right there. Now moving into Hygen the Unclean, one of the most iconic fights in all of Naxxramas, where you do have the Hygen dance. We did see the go on. Windforce getting low, yeah.
Windforce, yeah, that's all I'm saying is Windforce is getting low.
You got to get the disease.
Continue.
You got to get the disease off people and pets and stuff like that. You got to get them down. The disease cleansing totem, or the cleansing totem, only affects your group. So you have to kind of do some manual disease cleansing there.
Yeah, a ton of damage. This is
majority
another
of
phase that
GCDs.
does have, or another boss that does have 2 phases. If the boss does do its teleport, which would be in 45 seconds over here on the side of Progress, then you would see the boss take significantly longer. Technically, you can DPS it down during that phase, but you lose out on all of your actual melee DPS during that phase. The boss would come up to this kind of platform that we see the left side where Stead is kind of standing right here, and all of the ranged DPS are attacking him from. So we're seeing this nice Hygen dance. It doesn't look like people are taking too much damage from the actual, the dance mechanic, you would say. But the boss percentage or the enemy percentage is exactly the same between the two teams. They are both on the exact same boss. This is a really close race so far.
Yeah, this is
I wonder
insane.
how much they're going to greed for damage here. When Hygen goes up, you can greed for a little bit of damage, especially as a DK. So will both their DKs pop anti-magic shell and run in? You're seeing pets. You're seeing Windforce walk up. It's going to take a little bit of damage there. And no greed from the... Julius did pop his anti-magic shell just there, but he did not greed for any damage.
Interestingly, Hygen on 10-man, I think maybe hits for the exact same amount of damage as 25-man. It is not chill to run in
like
and
8K
actually
ticks or something
DPS.
like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it is a lot of damage. It is terrifying. I tried it recently, and nope.
But you're also not going to blow Icebound Fortitude on anything else in this fight as a DK, right? So you might as well run up there, get a little bit of extra hits. You're seeing Quasic go in. It looks like Critias isn't even going to do that. Oh, nope, they're just playing it safe. They're playing it so safe here.
One of the interesting things in this next section, they actually have to clear quite a bit of these eye stalks, or they'll lose some of the time from the time penalties. So they're running past everything, but within the new Warcraft logs penalties, and Toto getting really low here. If you don't interrupt these eye stalks and just run past them, they can be a lot more terrifying than any of the other mechanics. This is actually one of the scariest rooms right after Hygen, moving in towards Lothep.
And it also, because you can't drop combat. It takes a long time to drop combat if you missed 1 or 2 or anything like that. Also, keep in mind, these guys are so close to each other in terms of timing. 1 death from somebody like somebody on Progress will actually even up the time, right? The deaths are the things that will matter when we tally up the final scores here, because, like I said, it basically comes down to whoever kills KT first, but if there's no deaths. Whereas if Progress puts down even a single death here, you'll probably see it be evened up.
Yep.
Coming into Lothep now on.
Go ahead.
They're heading into Lothep now on the side of Progress, and for all you healers out there, if you've done this fight, you know how frustrating it can be. There is a necrotic aura that goes out on the entire raid. It lasts for 17 seconds, and no healing can be done during that time. There is a 3-second window where you can heal. So you need to time your cast, you need to have lots of mitigation available to you, and you have to be really on the ball with that aura. And Crix, can you let us know, how does the spore mechanic work?
Every now and then he puts out a spore that gives you the crit. You run out there, you got to get it
Before everybody else gets there.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, Lothep.
It's easy on 10-man. Yeah, it's easy on 10-man because it only gives the buff to 5 people. And you only have 2 groups in this example. 25 man, it gets a little more hectic because you have 5 groups and everybody wants the buff because it's instant damage. And so you just get these buffs. You wait till 10 people have it, as you just saw from Progress. When all of them had it, then they blow Lust, they blow their cooldowns, and then they nuke the boss. You typically save all your cooldowns, your Lust, and everything for when everybody in the raid has.
Yeah, exactly. If you look in the top left of each of the corners, you'll see there's the purple debuff that starts going up right there on the left side. That's the one that you can't heal with. And then the one that's a little teal, that's the spore buff. And also you can see on SPACEFORCE's side, they rocket booted away from all of the maggots, which means they didn't get a pre-pod on this. They ran straight in, tried to save some time. They never dropped combat from the gauntlet. Yeah, they never dropped combat from the gauntlet.
Interesting was with that buff, that's another, we're talking about snapshotting earlier. That's something that you would snapshot. If you are a class that snapshots, like an Affliction Warlock or a Shadow Priest, that's when you would reapply it, because at that, now since you have that 50% crit, it goes with your stats.
And one thing that's really interesting, I think that will change up what's going on between these 2 groups, is we're looking at the DPS meters here. How you choose what 5 people or what 5 DPS get that first spore buff, right? It's almost 30 seconds difference, maybe even more, where you can actually get the first spore towards the second buff, right? It's almost 30 seconds difference, maybe even more, where you can actually get the first spore towards the second spore, where people will be critting for every single one of their abilities instead of waiting for something else like just normal DPS. Like your unholy DKs do not excel really well on this fight. We're seeing Julius and Critias, they started out as the highest DPS, and they usually will start a fight always at the number 1 DPS slot, but you don't actually snapshot or get a gain from having extra crit on your Gary. And it's the same thing for Thaddeus when we end up eventually getting to that. So how you actually choose which DPS decide to get the buffs early, we can see that Weasel instead are doing 6.5k DPS, and we're going to see towards the end on the right side for SPACEFORCE how that DPS is going to kind of stack up.
Yeah, there is classes that are going to be better for each one of them as well, right? Rogues, I feel like it's like Rogues objectively love that buff, right? They want the buff. Certain classes benefit the crit more than a Demo Lock would. Like crit just doesn't do much for us, right? Where like an Affliction Lock it does, or insert said class that loves crit.
And they did leave a spore up on the left side for Progress. It looks like some of the DPS are going to run to it, grab that spore buff, which again means what we're anticipating is them moving into the actual military quarter next. I did mention a second ago Gary, which is the Gargoyle ability, the main damage DPS ability for Unholy Death Knights in Wrath of the Lich King Classic. This is a 3-minute cooldown that summons your Gargoyle that ends up doing something like half of your damage on a fight if you do well with snapshotting it, which it does scale off of your current attack power and your current haste rating whenever you do summon it. And it lasts for, I believe, 30 seconds. That's a number that I might be completely wrong about, but that is a massive amount of your damage, and it doesn't scale with something like that crit buff that we're seeing on Lotheb. And SPACEFORCE on the right side also doing the same thing, getting the crit buff on all of their characters moving into the military wing. So just like we anticipated, we're seeing people move into military quarter. SPACEFORCE moving into patchwork wing.
There we go.
Ooh, I'm excited.
SPACEFORCE, by the way, killing these bosses, almost all of them faster than Progress as well. I don't know if that, well, no, because Progress also ran the Shadow Priest in the last fight too, so I'm not sure, but SPACEFORCE is nuking.
Yeah, if we're looking at the
down,
DPS breakdowns, we're definitely seeing some large time differences. If you look towards the bottom of the screen here, we're looking at some large time differences, which is going to catch them up. And we've seen SPACEFORCE actually utilize their rocket boots quite a bit more than we've seen Progress. Progress did use their rocket boots here early on in the military quarter a second ago, but SPACEFORCE have been using mobility options quite a bit. And that does save a massive amount of time throughout the entirety of a raid.
But it's still not enough. They're still behind, right? They've been doing a lot. We've been seeing them do gigapulls. We've been seeing them kill bosses faster. The progress is just cleaner on the trash, cleaner on all the mobs that you need to kill. That's the big thing here in speedruns that people don't always take into account. It's not boss kill times. It's how quickly can you gather and do the trash and all of these mobs before you have to move into the next thing. How much can you drag into the next pack? How much can you drag into the boss? That's what really matters. That's why there's a big shift from, metas before where people were like, oh, I just want to parse on bosses, to when at the highest level with speedrunning, It's all about how much you do for the entire instance. It's about the overall.
Interesting. I think that we have 3 minutes.
Look at that. Look at that. They're sending the other mob to go get the mind control mob on the left. They're sending it to go get some axes. They're sending it. Look at he's going to taunt it.
Oh,
He's
yes.
going to bone shield it. Boom, boom, boom. Bring it in. Bring it in. Bring it in. Bring it in.
This is one of the speedrun strategies. Go on, Craigs. This is one of the speedrun strategies I thought we were going to see. Yeah.
Craigs, what do you want to say, man?
I was just going to say the axes have a whirlwind. They got to watch out pulling them all in there.
Yeah, they got to watch out for that. Yeah. It's not going to hit that hard. And also on Resuvius, there's not that much to heal. I don't know. What do you think, Hula Hoops?
The only thing really to heal on Resuvius is the mind-controlled ads, because Resuvius is tanking them. On 10-man, he doesn't do a ton of damage. On 25-man, you need to spam those spam heals into those mobs, especially because with the mind control, once it fails or if one of them dies or something like that, they're coming back for your priests. But in 10-man, of course, as you guys notice, you don't need priests for this. There's actually 2 pillars. And when you click on the pillar, it will instantly mind control one of these ads that you then use to tank Resuvius. So that's a mechanic that they brought into the game. So it doesn't require 2 priests just for 10-man rating. But they do take a substantial amount of damage, especially on 25-man. Other than that, you just need to heal up the physical debuff, the sword that he throws at people, the axe, and other. But generally speaking, it's really not that difficult to fight to heal.
Yeah, and there's another thing too. Go ahead.
Patchwork.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. I'm really worried about this.
Guys. Yes.
Really worried about this. Quasic doesn't have that much gear. I know Patchwork in 10-man, he doesn't hit as hard. He's got 12K, 10K hits, things like that. But the threat is something I'm a little worried about, and also how much these guys are going to pump.
Any of these Demonology Warlocks get a little bit too close when they're within the top 3 of threat, they will take a Hateful Strike and just get instantly clapped. Malix also probably is going to be, you can see him moving in right here on the right side. He's moving into Trap Weave. So Trap Weaving is a massive DPS increase for hunters in Wrath of the Lich King Classic. In the Burning Crusade, all of the hunters were actually melee weaving, and it was an ability or a playstyle that every 0.3 seconds you needed to move in, melee in a boss, and move back out and continue casting without actually timing it so poorly that it delayed any of your shot timers. So now we're actually seeing traps also being thrown out. You can see it again, Malix doing it. It is a huge DPS increase, and Survival Hunters actually doing extremely well on the meters in this first phase of Wrath of the Lich King. And then on the left side is a time-gated fight. It can be multiple minutes where you kind of, if you're doing it normally, are just sitting there doing nothing. But we most likely will see these teams send a character through the Gothic Gate towards 4 Horsemen and bring other pulls back into the fight itself and actually save a ton of time. Now, I'm curious, Zyrene, what do you think are some of the scariest of these speedrunning strategies that will be employed today, and do you think they will go for it here on the side of Progress?
I want to see how Progress do it, and if they end up going all on one side, or if they do a split strat here, or if they just have, it looks like they're just going to have their hunter over there, and I'm not sure, they might have to do group buffs and stuff like that to get aggro of the mobs. So yeah, they are 100%. You can see him kind of over there. You see him doing a jump, and he's through the gate right now, I believe.
On the left side of that is a very hard jump to make, actually. It is a small little space. Actually, in the world first race, Beef Bar, it spent 2 minutes trying to make that jump to get through the gate. You do have to make a very small little hole to get through the gate. And then the coordination between the raid leader and the hunter, where they will be pulling all of the trash packs between this boss and the next boss into this room where they are waiting here, as we're going to see in a second. Here comes the Death Knight captains and the Death Knight pulls, and it's actually intimidating.
And remember, deaths add time, so one of these on the wrong person at the beginning of the fight, somebody who is healing, anything like that, Windforce has to be on top of this.
Yeah.
And Patchwork is frenzied on the right-hand side.
Mm-hmm.
And
you can see the cooldowns.
one thing that you guys wanted to see, this is where everything's going to come out. That was an amazing patchwork on the side of Space Force. That went way better than we expected. I was watching that the entire time. One thing you might have noticed, Kerp's mana management was probably going to be the biggest issue, and he did an amazing job of mana management. He didn't even need to go into melee much to get some Seal of Wisdom procs. I believe he got an Innervate. He was great use of Divine Plea, and the other thing you need to notice on the side of Space Force, which is not something Progress is having to deal with, Gerb is the only paladin in the raid, so it's up to him to keep up Judgment of Light. So instead of just judging once every minute for his Judgments of the Just buff, Judgments of the Pure, to get his own additional haste, he's going to have to keep Judgment up to make sure that those healing procs are coming out as well. So he's having to spend GCDs probably every 12 to 13 seconds on top of keeping everyone alive. They did an amazing job on that fight. I am super impressed.
I'm sure he's probably doing wisdom on these fights, right? I'm not sure. I'd have to check. But yeah, one of the things here too respect. Addy respect, and then he just got Innervate right now to give him some mana so he doesn't have to stop and drink. And Critias was actually blood for Patchwork. You could tell because he gave an Unholy Frenzy to Novar, and having Will of the Necropolis helps you a lot there. But that was kind of the big hump there that we were really afraid of for Space Force was Patchwork with Quazik's gear. But the off tank is the one who takes a little bit more DTPS. So Quazik was able to main tank it, and Critias, blood DKs are pretty much the best off tank you could have for the Hateful Strikes.
Yeah, blood DKs have
they already pulled boss.
Fear with threat whatsoever, right? So, they did. They sent Pet up. Malik sent Pet all the way up to grab Grobulus. So we're seeing this pull a little bit early. They, again, won't drop combat, most likely. It looks like everybody's going to be in combat. Nova, it did just use his rocket boots there. That might have been a misclick because they kind of would like to have rocket boots right after Grobulus. Grobulus on 10-man, his little oozes that he spawns on the ground, not the actual ooze themselves, not the slime, but those little pools you can see on the right side, they do keep you in combat usually in 25-man, but I think in 10-man they actually drop when you do defeat the boss themselves. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, right?
I'm not sure. I haven't really paid too much attention to that. But one of the things here is like when that disease gets dispelled, it is like 12k damage AoE. If somebody's sitting in a pool for even 2 seconds, it will absolutely destroy them. You saw at the beginning of the fight, one went off and hit like 3 people. It is a big burst. It is not a burst to be underestimated. Grobulus was like a complete joke in original Naxx, kind of like the cooldown boss where you're just like, all right, guys, we killed Patchwork. We're good to go. Loot Pinata time. Here, if you have one person who doesn't completely understand like that they don't dispel or anything like that, you have a wipe on your hands. This boss, I've seen so many people wipe to in Wrath of the Lich King that you never would have seen that in a million years in Classic.
Notice that Space Force is still running the Shadow Priest the entire time.
No, they swapped for Patchwork. They just brought it back. Yeah,
Patchwork.
Yeah, they just brought it back, and on the left side we see Stead is through the Gothic Gate. He is using Eyes of the Beast to control his pet to try to decide when to pull the next trash packs back into the group. But this takes a massive amount of coordination with the raid leader because you can see on the left side Kia is very low on mana. Kia might be DPSing. It looks like no, Kia is disc right now. On the left side you can see it with the healing out.
They're on the boss right now, I believe too.
They are fighting Gothic, yeah. So we do see Stead going forward to pull these next trash packs, and you do see how close you need to get with the bet. And they're finally coming back towards the Progress group. And yes, they are on Gothic. They are fighting Gothic. And there's the rocket boots, like I was saying, on the right side from Space Force so they can get up closer. I believe they've dropped combat, but they might not have, which won't allow them to get another pre-potion. But their mana management seems very solid. The lowest person would be Malix, who could easily swap. You cannot use your actual aspect of the pack in this little section, this little pipe boss. Sometimes people fall here. Because it does actually hit you and slow the entire raid.
All right, they're going on to Gluth here. One of the things with Gluth is you have to have a taunt off if you don't have the DPS to get him down before 10 stacks. We'll see. Their DPS has been quite good. So I don't think they'll do a tank swap here. Too. Yeah, they're one healing it. Doing a tank swap probably won't be a thing. But they also need somebody to kite here. So it might be Malix, right?
Yeah, without a mage,
probably,
it's Critias. It's going to be Critias, actually.
It's Critias? Okay.
Mm-hmm. So Critias does look like he's dropping a little bit of damage if he can on the boss itself, but he is kiting things around in a circle. You can see these zombies that you see on the right side. The big thing for this boss is if he does get in range of these zombies themselves, he will eat them and heal up. So you do need to kite these zombies pretty much just around in a circle forever. And a huge pull on the side of Progress.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
The bomb is
Terrifying
Wind Force.
Oh no.
No Arden yet.
And they pulled that off well. Did they see Weasel with the AoE taunt? Did we see Weasel with an AoE taunt there?
I'm not sure. I think there might have been one weaved in there when he got bopped to potentially save them.
He does have what's it called? Forbearance. Right?
Yeah, he did get.
Yeah, he definitely got the bop.
But one of the things that Warlocks have in Metamorphosis that we will see more of as speedruns develop more is they have a challenging shout. They have a challenging roar. They can taunt everything to them. If you're getting bopped, you might as well challenging roar everything onto you because it's going to take pressure off your tank. They may have utilized that there. We'll see later on if they did, but that was a really big pull, and they were able to pull it off just barely. Let's see if they get somebody back with 4 horsemen here.
And we're going to see if they stack any of these horsemen here, which can save a ton of time. And it looks like they are stacking the front 2 horsemen. They did send Stead to the back of the room. So they have a paladin, most likely, with add-ons, as well as their hunter in the back of the room, kind of tanking the back 2 horsemen while they deal with cleaving down the front 2 here.
They just need to get that one down. Once you get Thane down and everybody's stacked for the meteors, you can start having people move. Baron Rivendare, only single stacks are going out. We'll see if they send some people to Cerzeliak, like their range, or maybe some of their melee. We'll see if they have assignments, hard assignments for this right now, after Baron Rivendare goes down. But yeah, one of the things that people do, a lot of people are like, whoa, you don't need 4 tanks for 4 horsemen. No, you actually only need a single tank for 4 horsemen, and then you need 1 person in the back with another person of any kind. So right there, it looks like they had the pet, and they had the Holy Paladin. Now, Holy Paladins are the best for this because Beacon will actually heal 60-yard range, which is way more than any other heal. Heals are 40-yard range. So you beacon the other person and spam heal yourself, and it'll go across the room, so you can heal both people who are tanking. One is yourself, one is another person, in the back. So Lady Bilmo and Cerzeliak are typically tanked by a Holy Paladin plus one other thing that is beaconed.
Now I want to see if someone misses the jump. I'm just honestly watching this to see if somebody misses the jump right now.
You're one of those people who look for the train wreck. You're just like, what's it gonna happen?
Because it would be funny, right? Darth, do you have anything to say about these jumps?
It'd be funny.
The jump? Yeah, no, I've never seen anybody fail the jump before. It's a super easy mechanic. If you do jump before you actually press your rocket boots, it doesn't do anything. So, just know about that. But, let's look on the left side, looking over at Progress, moving into Cerzeliak. This mob does a chain lightning ability. It's a Holy Nova chain or a Holy cast chain that everyone it chains to, it does more damage. So if you actually run in here with all of your melee DPS, it could easily kill your entire group. And again, no deaths have happened today, but anyone that dies in any of these raid groups will add a 30-second addition onto their timer. And things are actually a lot closer than you guys might think. They are off by about 3 minutes and 10 seconds, but we don't have the timers pulled up on screen anymore, but they're very close.
We took them down. So people were asking a little bit too much about them.
Yeah. They are moving.
Windforce actually got they're doing a big pull again.
Yeah,
they have all their cooldowns. They're doing a big pull here again. Windforce popping his defensive. There's the Sapper. Weasel has the bop. He's inside.
They pulled also the room as well. You can see Stead moved in and pulled the Belcher inside of the room. So this is a huge pull. They do need to actually make sure that they don't get stunned here as well. All of these big abominations do a stun, and they will down these slimes that they move in slowly to the group. That is a massive pull from the side of Progress here on the left. And on the right side, we are seeing our first fight of Thaddeus for SPACEFORCE. SPACEFORCE moving into Thaddeus, which is potentially one of the longest fights in Naxxramas 10-man and Naxx 25. It is definitely a long fight where you get those pluses and minuses. You can see on their character frames on the right side that you want to make sure you're near people with the plus sign or near people with the minus sign if you have the exact same buff or debuff respectively. If you mix it up, you do kill yourself and you do hit the entire raid.
Yeah, and you ruin the achievement for everyone too. One of the big things with Thaddeus is when Wrath of the Lich King came out, they actually changed mob AI. So he might move a little bit here based on tank movement. It's been pretty annoying. They kind of changed the way that it was. So if you're somebody who's tanked in Classic or TBC, you kind of learned how mobs move when you move. Now mobs are less reactive and they're more predictive of your movement. So they'll actually move up onto you sometimes. And that Thaddeus is a big he's one of the people who does it the most, right? It's one of the most annoying mobs to tank. And you're swapping sides. If he has to swap, good. He doesn't have to swap this time. Good to go. But I have just been loving some of the things I've been seeing here on the side of Progress. They're doing a lot of these big pulls into Wind Force. He's doing an amazing job tanking here. I also noticed he got a weapon upgrade. Going to help him out again here. He got the Hungering Cold remake. Right? Yeah, exactly. The Sword of 1,000 Truths.
How much is that gear helping Wind Force right now?
It definitely helps you. I mean, one of the things too is Paladins.
Bigger, it looks like.
Yeah. Paladins are like, you like fast weapons or slow weapons. Slow weapons a little bit more for trash and for those big bursts of seals. But now that Patrick's walking away from him, he's strolling away. Frogger. Oh, watch that pet.
We'll be interesting to see if anyone dies to Frogger. It looks like everyone's safe. This would be a place to die, right? To fall to Frogger would be. Quasic down!
Instantly died, and one just as soon as he pulled, got clapped out.
Huge hit. Critias actually grabs the aggro of everything, or tries to kite it all away. He doesn't have an AoE taunt. Quasic is back alive, so they are recovering here, but that is a 30-second time hit. They did
Nine down.
Probably
Left.
Oh,
Nine's down too.
Enhancement Shaman got clapped out right away, right when the boss fight started.
Both sides having one death. It's basically even still again. It's basically a wash there. Quasic, though, the gear difference, he has been a little unlucky here, and it is something that has cost him right there. I think they also didn't have some of their cooldowns go out in time, but that is one of those big pulls that you like to do with the Loatheb Spore, but they chose not to do it here.
Yeah, they would have taken a lot less damage too if he had like half a second more, got a shockwave out during that, but he died instantly. With a little bit of extra gear, one more dodge, he could have had enough time to get that global out, but he was just done. And a huge recovery actually from the side of SPACEFORCE on the right side, where Critias did a great job to grab aggro of everything with a big Hungering Cold, an AoE ability that just snapped threat for him, and he just rocket booted away, so he did not take a lot of the damage while he had threat on everything, while they were able to get the battle res out.
So on the side of Progress here, we did see Shine go down. So the Hateful Strike mechanic we've been talking about, which is actually the biggest damage strike that Patchwork does during this fight, is he targets melee that has the second highest threat. And so Shine, as the Enhanced Shaman, obviously probably popped off and went a little too high on threat right at the beginning and got that first Hateful Strike. And as a melee DPS, you're not going to survive that. That's something only the tanks can deal with. And then we did also see Stet, very great gameplay. Great to gameplay. He was going to go in and trap weave, and he was pretty high on threat. So you actually saw him feign death right before he went into trap weave to drop that threat, put the trap down, and get back out. He doesn't want to get those hatefuls.
Stet is one of the best hunters in the world. Absolutely. Like in the speedruns of Sunwell, you would always see him at like 7,000 DPS almost on a lot of the bosses, when you would see other speedrun guilds just be sitting there at like a 4K opener. He is phenomenally good at the game, and his spatial awareness or his game sense is really good. And I think that's going to really make a big difference. That we haven't seen too much of having hunters go forward and deal with too many things so far, other than necessarily the Gothic pulls. But that does add up quite a bit, is having your hunter ahead of the rest of the pack, making sure that they're pulling things back to you in this raid, since this is a long raid in itself. So that spatial awareness, staying alive and doing phenomenal DPS here. I don't know if we still have timers of exactly how long it's taking everyone to kill the bosses, but on the right side, we are seeing SPACEFORCE head into Instruction.
They don't have the tech.
They aren't moving their mobs forward. Yeah, they aren't moving the MC'd actual Death Knight tanks forward to grab any of the weapons that they have to deal with later. They might do it soon, though. They might be having a safe opener here as they're dropping one of the understudies and probably going to re-grab it. Let's see it in a second.
I don't think so, because they blew all their metas and everything. They would have saved it for the ads.
Yeah, they would say when things got brought in here. So yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think they're doing it. They're not doing the tech. That understudy is very low, though. That is a struggle. It looks like
a real damage.
Yeah, is Addy? Is he Shadow still?
It says that she's DPS healing.
Looks like he's disc, but I guess it's just the mob. Yeah, I guess he's on the crystal, right?
Yeah. So that's where his damage is coming out.
So Kerp is solo healing this right now, so he's got to take care of the ads and the people who get the knives thrown at them.
which is quite a bit of damage. That's something that wasn't a thing in Classic. The original version of Instructor Vesuvius is now he will just randomly throw this AoE knife at you or this dagger, and it will do a tick of damage to you on top of his Disrupting Shout. You don't have to necessarily LOS the Disrupting Shout as much anymore, but if you're not paying attention, your healers or whoever is actually doing the mind controlling will die if you don't keep them topped up if they do get this physical debuff on them.
Yep. And if you look on the left side, we saw they actually pulled the Giants into Grobulus. This is what I love. This is what makes me look really good on the damage meter. And Weasel, same thing there. He's just standing, seeding, trying to get them all. He's seeding on Grobulus, man. He's a little illegal padding. Check the logs.
He took quite a bit of damage, too.
Now, Crix, how bad does it feel on Grog to pop everything, get in melee, pop your ammo, and then get the disease? How bad does that feel?
It ironically happened to me each week this week in my 25-mans. I've got it like before we pull him from top of the ramp, before he even gets to the bottom, I get the literal first one. But I'm smart and I put a demonic circle up, which allows you to teleport, and I put it where we're going to be. So if I do get it, I just run out and I portal back. Warlocks can cheat because we have a portal. So it's not, and like mages can blink it. So it's not that bad for us really, but it is pretty bad because the meta, right? If you pop meta, I'm running in there to emo aura. I hold it for the ad to come out, put a corruption on the ad, and then I get it. It feels like crap.
Yeah, we're seeing on the left side here. We're seeing that progress is, and this is probably what you were just about to talk about, is that they're kiting Grobulus up towards the next exit into the next boss. And this is something that saves a lot of time in speedruns. It's something that's kind of understated, and most people don't really anticipate or realize how important it can be in an actual overall for a speedrun, is bring the boss towards the next one. Right as it dies, they're going to be as close as possible to the pipe to move faster into Gluth. So as they're moving Grobulus up this ramp, it's something that we didn't see necessarily from SPACEFORCE, but SPACEFORCE on the right side did get a huge drop from Naxx. They did get a bow drop, which he instantly equipped and enchanted. Another thing we were mentioning yesterday is that they will have enchants on them as they move into these raids. So whenever a big drop does happen, they can just basically instantly enchant something and keep moving on, and that is a huge upgrade for them.
It's a big time save. I talked about simultaneous actions when you have things that you have to do, like the RP on Gothic. You want to pull mobs into it that you would kill anyway. You want to pull bosses down paths that you have to walk anyway. So if you can do two things that you have to do at the same time, kill trash and go through RP, or kill a boss and pull it down a path, you want to do that. Like, Grobulus is actually so funny because he's one that I've even taken to an extreme when I was doing PTR in original Naxx, or I guess Classic in Vanilla. And I tried to pull him down the tube, and he resets, actually. So you can't pull him down the tube. I'm trying to, just so anybody doesn't get any crazy ideas. Yeah, I tried pulling him down the tube. You can get him inside the tube, but he goes back real fast, like maybe 5 feet in. That was a fun PTR
cool
session.
Tech, right? That's what you do on PTR, and when you have time,
you have to mess up a bunch.
Cool things. That's that's how the Gothic gate that we're hopefully about to see on the right-hand side here for SPACEFORCE gets figured out. You spend the time, you try the crazy things. 90% of them won't work, but the 10% that do, you go, oh, light bulb.
Yeah, this is really, like, Malik's taking quite a bit of damage. He actually got hit there. That was scary. He does have a soulstone on himself.
Mobs are still going to go through, though.
Coming through, yeah.
Oh, wait. Did he see? Is it a vigilant shade that got him and he didn't see it?
I think so. They did. No, they did. He did get the mobs through. You could see him on his screen that they did run through. This is the scariest, potentially one of the hardest things to do in all of Naxxramas is this Gothic pulling, which used to be the most, like, the easiest boss in the raid, and now comes down to being one of the most key bosses in the entire raid.
Yeah, so one of the things that Malik's doing right now, so on Progress's side, they were doing things like group buffs, right? Then as soon as you had a like combat go through with Stead, they would like buff the group and it would give aggro onto like a healer or something. What they're doing is they put the Prot Warrior talent of Vigilance onto Malik's. So he is actually transferring 5% of his threat to Quasic. So whenever Malik's hits something, Feign Deaths, it will run straight to Quasic no matter how far away it is because he generated some threat on it. So a Vigilance Prot Warrior, actually, with this, you'll see right here, it literally, like, no buff's going to go out, nothing like that. He's just volleying. As soon as he feigns, it's just going to go straight to Quasic.
And it's such a great, efficient use of time because the first phase of Gothic, there is so much downtime. So being able to, as Irene has mentioned multiple times, these simultaneous actions, so we have to kill this trash, might as well do it when there's literally nothing else going on. But you have to wait this time out, so bring that trash in, you are saving so much overall time.
Yeah, this is one of the biggest time saves possible, and it's something whenever you have a chance to pull more trash into a boss to deal with it at the same time as without taking any of your damage away from the boss, right? And we're seeing on the side of Progress, they have now finished all of their enemies. They are at 100%. They have to clear Thaddeus and then they can move into Saffron. But the same situation over here for Space Force is Malix is going through and trying to get everything he can, and he'll get a big pull here. This is a huge pull he's going to bring back, and he does use Satyrian so that he doesn't die, take any damage, does get the Feign Death off, and everything will run forward back towards the group. This will be super intimidating. This is going to be terrifying.
If you have bad timing on this side, you have bad timing on this side, that can be bad too. Because I remember on beta when we were trying to figure that out, these would be at the same time, and we wiped a few times on it.
Yeah, when I was talking about earlier, you have to be coordinating with. Feign Death can resist. It is a spell, so you can have extra spell hit, and it does not resist if you are at a certain range. So on your first ability, you can shoot something like a boss and Feign Death before it hits, and it cannot resist. But they will be using pretty much everything they have right here. This is where they're intimidated right now. You can see that the pain suppression did go out on Quasic. It is that debuff on the top left-hand or top right-hand corner in his actual debuff section. So this is still going to be intimidating. They already did their AoE stun, a lot of damage going out, but they did deal with this very, very well, and they are a little bit behind here, Addy taking a lot of damage. This is the biggest pull, and this will save them a ton of time. That was risky. That was super risky.
They are so good. Like, that was just executed so well.
I think Malix is bringing more, too. I think he just got dazed. Also, just a little correction. Yeah, it is 10% vigilance threat. It's 5% more with the glyph. I apologize for that. It is just, I'm really excited about it because it's tech that nobody's really shown yet is the vigilance tech with the hunter pull simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know about warriors.
Oh, yeah, I know people don't use it, but not a lot of warriors out there.
Oh, the amount of times I've been in a run or a dungeon and I've asked for vigilance on my warlock, and they go, "Oh,
it goes demo lock every time."
They're like, "Oh, what? I didn't even know this existed." I'm like, "You're the warrior, bro. I'm sorry. I need that.
I'm supposed to play your class and mine at the same time."
Quick call out on the side of Progress.
Oh,
go on.
What's that with Progress?
Go ahead, sorry. I just want a quick call out that.
Who looks first? Well, go ahead.
I think there's a bit of a delay. On the side of Thaddeus, so Progress is Kia is Disc. Just wanted to call back to Space Force's kill on Thaddeus. Addy was Shadow. They did use that beacon tech to be able to solo heal the tanks on Thaddeus on the side of Space Force, but Kia rather has gone Disc for this fight. So Space Force's kill of Thaddeus should be considerably quicker. So we'll see that timestamp afterwards. But they are, it looks like Progress seems to be perhaps a little faster on the trash mobs going through. But Space Force is definitely, their boss kill times are pretty quick.
Gekar is doing so much damage in this raid.
Done a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Enhancement Shamans are up there. So anybody who was just like, I played Enhancement in TBC, it's a dead class. It's only a dead class because you don't bring 5 of them to the raid. What are you talking about? Well, you're still going to have Enhancement Shamans. You still, Resto is actually pretty dang good. And Ellie, go play arenas. They're actually like the best in arena. I think there's going to be an arena tournament for Classic coming up as well. You're probably going to see a ton of Ellies in that. So Shamans, definitely not a dead class by any means. You just don't stack them. Quaz got a weapon.
Incredibly powerful. Quaz got a weapon. Big upgrade here for Quaz. He's been waiting for a weapon. He still doesn't have a helm, I believe, with the meta.
Oof.
But they've moved through this. Like, they haven't really had issues. They are moving into 4 Horsemen as we are seeing Progress move into Saffron. So
2 minutes and 30 seconds behind now.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually about 2 minutes and 30 seconds behind.
Yeah, but we have seen some of the bigger pulls over here on the side of Progress. Quasic, if he had the more gear, that's kind of what has set a little bit of apart. We have seen Progress doing some of these bigger pulls, whereas Space Force weren't really able to do the pulls potentially that they were thinking of, these huger pulls, because of Quasic not really having the gear. We saw when they were trying to establish one at the beginning of the military quarter, he did just go down before he really grouped everything up.
Malix gotta get a little closer. Okay, there we go. I was like, Malix,
Also,
there's a meteor.
Progress has been double healing pretty much the entire time too. Whereas Space Force has had that Shadow Priest, so that double healing is letting them do more packs as well, bigger packs as well, more healing out.
Yeah,
and it's the disc actually healing too, so it's the absorbs, the shields, stuff like that, which is big.
Well, it's actually interesting too, because like Horde, it's just like considered like Horde have better ratios for boss kill times, right? They have trolls, they have all these extra like AP and all that. Whereas Alliance, you have some things that will help you on trash, get out of like drop threat, get out of things, have hit chance, etc. So it really is something where we're kind of seeing the racials do their part, where the kill times, even though it may not be as clean on the side of Space Force, those Horde racials are doing work. The Progress, these guys have just been doing this for so long, and they've been at the top since the very beginning of Classic. It's just absolutely insane. Like this is a 10-man. You don't prepare for this. You just show up and you execute.
Mm-hmm.
They're like the Navy SEALs. They're like the Navy SEALs of Classic WoW. We can drop them in a goddamn combat zone called Naxxramas and be like, hey, you guys have nothing. You have no water. You have no food. You have no gear. And then they're just like, all right, let's clear this as fast as possible. And they are doing absolute work here.
They're having a lot of fun. I was talking to them earlier. They're laughing in comms and having a good time. Yeah, this is just another day at the office for them. This is just light work.
This is honestly, Progress is one of their strongest raids in all of Classic history. Since we are technically revisiting Naxxramas, the mechanics are different slightly, but the overall arching themes throughout the raids and a lot of the strategies are going to be employed from what we saw in the speedruns back in the day. And Progress actually was a guild that came up with some of the strategies and did not. It was the first time in Classic WoW speedrunning history where we saw some of the top guilds actually get world records and not share a VOD of it originally until some other guilds actually went in and challenged some of those strategies and did them as well. And then we saw kind of that come out. That was a huge kind of contention in the scene, a huge thing that people were worried about.
Look, you see people on Saffron facing the other way. Yeah, there's a thing where if you're behind a block and you actually still hit it, then you're actually going to die from behind the block. And I think they got an air phase there they didn't want. Saffron won't go into the air at 10%, so you can usually push it if you have the gear. But the Saffron can't die during the air phase, and it looked like it was at 1 HP for a bit. It looks like they're behind a solid 2 minutes here.
On the
side of Space Force.
Some earlier.
Yeah, they're unfortunate situation where with these last two bosses, there's no way to speed them up. So there's no tech they can do. There's no phasing, obviously just do more damage, but there's nothing kind of cool tricks or anything they can do to speed it up. So it's really just about pump that damage, get Saffron down, beat that air phase, and maybe they can make up some time. But yeah, unfortunately with Saffron and KT, there's really no way to speed it up beyond the scripted fight itself. So really pulling for Space Force here to get that damage out. I want to see some big pumpers over there. Get the boss down, get over to KT, and let's make this a really close fight.
I honestly think that Progress is they're gonna have to wipe for it to, something's gonna have to happen at KT for Progress not to bring this home right now. Maybe they pull too many of these.
There's a lot again,
like Zyrian was saying, Saffron, if you can actually bring him down to 10% before the second air phase, that does save you quite a bit of time. So Saffron, you can actually shorten a bit, but on Kel'Thuzad is a bit of RNG. It's a little bit random where things can get a little bit scary and someone could get mind controlled, which I don't believe happens in 10-man situations. But there's a lot of damage going out on the side of Space Force here. Tetsu getting quite low, and they do need to top him up. There it is.
Yeah, they went back to having two healers here, and it is definitely necessary. If one gets blocked, the other one has to do all the healing. We saw that there where Kerp had to do all the healing. They are not in a great spot here time-wise for sure, but they also need to nuke this down. And I think Tetsu is the only decursor on the squad, so he's going to have to do that all by himself as well.
Which is hard. As a Boomy, I despise it because that's a lot of damage. Boomies do a lot of damage, as you can see. Having to not do that to be able to decurse is miserable. but needed.
Yeah.
Right?
But it is a life drain, so like
yeah,
if you don't decurse,
as a mage. Imagine
I would
the
never play a
mages
mage.
all
Though.
of
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
Shamans can decurse as well, I believe. Or is that? Am I getting
you have to
confused with
talent
retail?
into it in resto. It's a resto talent.
Right. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Sometimes I haven't played
problem.
Resto Shaman since Sunwell, so
Not a lot of people have.
no, you're not wrong there. We don't see a lot of the.
I played
the
it to
blues.
try it, and it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. It's definitely the best inspiration uptime. 10% reduced damage on your tanks. So it's it has a spot somewhere. We just don't know where yet.
Yeah, could be utilized actually. Old
Super
War,
interest-
it'll see the shine.
Mm-hmm.
Super interesting
Griggs?
because they both died, right? But Progress was actually on the boss. And then obviously for this exact challenge it adds time, but if you look at in terms of like what the achievement like for the Undying is.
Okay,
Space
so
Force died on trash where it didn't count.
Space Force will get the achievement and Progress will actually win the race.
Yeah. Because Progress died on a boss, whereas Space Force died
It's
on
really
trash.
Undying. I see what
So
you're
they're-
getting at
all
here.
winners.
You already know those debates are going to come out, right? That's why I said
This
it. You already know
is
people
where
are
the,
gonna vote.
the NA copium comes in very quickly.
I'm preparing it because you already know it's going to be said.
Moving on to the last boss. Actually, we're seeing Space Force has not completed all of their trash requirements.
They not
if that's
do the trash
correct.
requirements? Oh no.
Oh, they do. They do have 100%. So we're
do,
figuring
yeah.
out that they do have 100% cleared. So
Okay,
Space Force
thank God.
is fully cleared. They did get some good loot drops here with the cloak for Nova, and now it's all about killing Kel'Thuzad. If there is something that goes wrong on the side of Progress, maybe people die to those void zones. We did see people fall to void zones earlier on Saffron, or Sartharion. So we might see some things go wrong on the side of Progress. Progress is a bit ahead, and both of them having that 30-second time loss from the one death. If there is another death on the side of Progress, that really will help Space Force catch up here. It's getting very close, and Progress obviously a little bit ahead, but things can go wrong on this boss, especially if you miss an interrupt or if the wrong person actually gets kind of hit with the ice tombs. This can be a terrifying boss.
It looks like it's about a 3-minute difference now. So you would have to have a lot of people die on the side of Progress. Like this is one of those things where I would be very BM just as a player. And if I knew that we were 3 minutes ahead, I would at like 5%, I would jump into I would have a little void zone party. I would ask how many people want to die to a void zone or shadow fissure on purpose and get
You
like
can
3 or 4
1
people
second.
killed.
You can definitely
Just
die
get like
pretty
3 or
easy
4
on
people
KT.
killed.
Go on,
You can die
Chris.
easy
Was
on
that?
KT. You can die easy on KT versus some random things if you don't move. I know as a lock, personally as a lock, I got to run in there and emo ore, and I'm always terrified to do that. We did our immortal run, and I was so scared on KT
Yeah, the frost
go that I
stuff,
didn't. I didn't even go in. I was like, I'm just gonna sit out here and not even go emo aura because I was so terrified.
A lot of times people have kind of a fear of seeing those actual, on the left side, you can see the void zones. They are red void zones, and they can actually match with the same exact color scheme of Death and Decay. And we do have 2 Death Knights on the side of Progress. So a lot of times in a pug situation or even in guild raids, you'll see people ask not to actually drop Death and Decay because they might lose out on kind of seeing the difference there. So we do see Toto moving out of that void zone. So far, 0 deaths on the side of Progress on the fight of Kel'Thuzad itself. But that's really, as we're getting towards the end of this fight, this is where things get a little bit scarier as the boss summons his ads. But this is coming towards the close of the race. They did just bloodlust or heroism, and it is getting very tight here.
And I actually think Windforce has enough gear that he can tank both of the ads simultaneously with Kel'Thuzad. He picked up enough from the heroics, and he picked up enough just actively here that I think when the 2 come in, it's just time to go ahead and pick them up, get them with the range taunts. There it is.
There was
number 1.
the first one, yeah.
Yeah, people ask me all the time. It's just like I said, only Thaddeus and Patchwork mechanically require 2 tanks. And they're like, what about KT? It's like you can
There he is.
actually, once you have gear, you just blast them. You just keep them all on you. Now, one of the problems is if you do get blocked, you will take all those hits for the entire duration, but you should have 2 healers available if you're the one who's blocked. So,
Can the boss still ice block the main tank? Because that is kind of terrifying, right?
I don't know if it can anymore. I think it can. It's patch. I know it doesn't hit him every time, but I don't know if it's like unable to do it at all. But if a melee
Progress
stance,
Something you will notice.
close here. Go on, hula hoops.
Yeah, one thing you will notice is that the DPS on Progress right now, and you'll see it as well as Space Force, they're kind of clumped in a triangle. That's because the tomb will go out it'll target someone, it'll go out on multiple people in that area. So the melee actually clump up in a couple of stacks so that it doesn't go on everybody. If they were all stacked up, you would get your entire melee group tombed, and that's just devastating. So they've done a really great job of stacking up properly to only get it on a couple people at a time.
That's the last percent.
And there we go.
There it is.
That's it.
So for the Alliance and for EU.
Which is crazy. Alliance are absolutely at a disadvantage technically. Although in this group composition, we're not really seeing the Horde Guild. We're not seeing Space Force utilize as much of what would give the Horde the advantage, which would mostly be trolls. This would be something we would see more if we actually saw a ton of undead, unholy death knights. If we saw a lot of people running the 25-man raid. But massive congratulations to Progress, the Undying Challenge champions, the champions of the first ever World of Warcraft sponsored speedrun competition, which is amazing to see. That was very close.
I mean, I'm going to have some crazy reactions to this. What I got from this is that EU is greater than NA, Alliance is better than Horde, DKs are better than Warlocks, and Prot Paladin's better than Prot Warrior. So I'm going to walk away with all of these reactions to this, process that, and then I'll probably go back to my WoW cave for a little bit while I try to mull this all over.
Clipped and shipped. It
Well,
didn't
Twitter
have to
blows
deal
up.
with any of the loot. Yeah. Seeing that race, seeing the end, especially for you, Irene, that was phenomenally close, but we did see Progress being able to do a lot of these bigger pulls. Do you think that made a bit of a difference, seeing what their gear differential was on their main tank moving into this Naxxramas raid?
I feel like there's a big difference in terms of the confidence. There's a reason you gear your tank first, right? Most of the time in Classic, people are like, oh, tank prio, it's for threat, it's for survivability, more so in Wrath of the Lich King. But I think that they did a really good job given what they had on the side of Space Force. But on Progress's side, they got what they got from Heroics, and they just ran with it. And you saw the confidence there. They know exactly how they want to do those pulls. And this is stuff that they definitely did not get practice with. They are not practicing 10-mans. They were focused on Race to World first before this, and then they were focused on their 25-mans. It was really funny because we were talking to them the other day, and they basically were just like, yeah, we don't really have too much practice with 10-man, right? It's a challenge. It's supposed to be like a fun competition for these guys. And they came in and it looked like they had rehearsed this before.
Well, probably what their 10-mans are in their raids normally, if you think about it. If you just do
you got to have the Chad 10-mans. You're just like, all right, boys.
Progress. Yeah.
Let's just get our badges, get out of here. Let's pull it all. One wipe, and then it takes longer than it would have otherwise, and you're in there longer. But nobody pays attention to those details. You're limit testing. You're limit testing.
I really think running the double healer helped a lot for Progress the whole time on the trash, allowing it and the tank loot, and the tank loot obviously, but that double healer running being for the big pools helped a lot.
That was something that Weasel actually mentioned earlier when we had the interview with him, was that they wanted to play it safe. They knew that they probably could take it a little bit more risky, but they wanted to play it safe with the double healer composition because it would keep them alive when things kind of would go wrong. And that's something, Hula, do you think that is more safe? Did that help them, hurt them? Could they have shaved off time by cutting the healer, or was this a good idea? And what do you think kind of happened here between the two raids, especially with the healing loot and how the healing went out?
I mean, one thing we talked about earlier was the fact that in speedrunning, yes, like killing a boss fast is a big deal, but people underestimate how much time you save by getting through trash mobs and all the various smaller creatures you have to kill faster. And having the second healer on Progress, Kia was disc for the majority of the time. Having that second healer meant they could pull bigger. The Warlocks could go bigger. They had more utility. They were safer in that sense. So while Space Force with Addy being Shadow had faster boss kills, you're really not saving that much overall time by killing each boss a few seconds faster, but being able to get more trash down, bigger pulls, a little safer on that end. And I mean, we did see Kia on a lot of the bosses actually just spamming Smite. So I mean, there was still some damage going out there. It wasn't non-existent, but it definitely. I do think that was a huge factor in Progress's success here, and being able to pull bigger, having that safer, that extra little blanket, if you will.
So we got address the elephant in the room. We haven't seen the end for Space Force, but they got the Undying title, right?
Oh, yeah.
Technically,
They did.
Technically, Space Force got the Undying title. Yeah, they died, but it was on trash. And
I think they
those that don't
misunderstood
know,
the
you
challenge.
Still get For those that don't know, on the actual Blizzard achievements, it's the trash. You just can die on trash. You're fine. It's only on the bosses. But this event specifically was the entire raid, which I think that's how it should be for the achievement as well. But
yeah,
And
interestingly,
30 seconds
we saw
is not a small amount of a time.
it's a lot of time.
That's a significant penalty for a death.
they were within a minute of each other at the end. I'm curious if we have the exact end timers for them, but this was very close between the two raids. And whenever we see any sort of the speed runs in World of Warcraft Classic, towards the end of the phase, the top guilds are literally shaving off 7 seconds. If it's longer than 10 seconds, that is a huge time save. And I'm Zyrene, you know this very well, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
you guys have gone these world records all the time. Is what do you think actually that leads me into this? What do you think they could have done to save any more time? Was it possible with their gear to push any harder?
I think the fact that they did the DK wing without the Loatheb buff, you saw how they just cleaved through it on the side. Here's the thing, right? If you're looking at 3 minutes, that is 5 seconds, 20 seconds, 15 seconds in so many different areas there, because that was not a clear, they messed this up. They got Noth to TP and that's a minute 30 right there. It's very small things that keep adding up, and it's mostly trash packs. If you take all of their boss kill times and add them together, I don't think there's even a minute difference between there. So there's a lot of stuff on trash that ended up being the difference. I think the military wing was one of them. It was a lot cleaner from progress. And then I think the patchwork, or the areas before patchwork, were a lot cleaner from progress as well. Much faster. And even from the get-go, Wind Force setting up the pulls, that's one of the reasons that I don't like to start. I don't really like, as a warrior, to start the run with the Giga pull, because the timer already starts, right? That's why I just like to run straight into Patchwork's area. I don't like doing Spider as the first one, because you want to Giga pull that. But as soon as you get combat and the person's bubbled, gathering everything up, I'm like, well, the timer's already running. I have 0 threat on all these things. When's the bubble up? Okay, now we get to go, right? So yeah, it's one of those things where I think they were really trying to limit push and get gear before the rest of the instance. I think that I don't know if their route would change if they were fully geared. I don't think Spider is the best start, but maybe I'm wrong there. So.
Let me ask you something, both of you guys. Anybody?
What's up?
There's one death per side, right? Did you think anybody was going to die, or did you think more was going to die? And let me tell you that I'm the doomer of the group, and I was hoping I was going to see some wipes.
I thought more were going to die. I thought more were going to die.
Dead.
I went in there and I saw the gear. I came into Naxx with Sunwell gear, right? So I wasn't really used to having all of that blue gear. And the gear, granted, 10-man does not hit that hard, right? There's not too many things that take you off guard. But I thought there were going to be more deaths, especially with the way they were pulling. There are geared groups doing 10-man who don't even pull that aggressively or even close to that, right? These guys were just absolutely trying to push it as hard as they could. So yeah, I thought there were going to be more. The fact there was only one on each side is actually very surprising to me. I thought there was going to be at least 2, maybe 3 on at least one of the sides. I didn't know if one was going to do way worse than the other, but 1-1. And I think the one for Shine, that's one of those things where I talk about you need expertise and you want hit on your tank, because it looked like something happened where maybe there was a parry or a resist or something, or not quite as many tricks or MDs as you would have wanted on off tanks and main tanks. But he walked in there and he insta died. He got that first hateful. It was bad.
Yeah, we do actually have an interview with Weasel from the winning team Progress ready to go for you guys. So we'll get that locked in right now. Bring them on in. I'm curious to hear what could have gone better, what went wrong. This is a really exciting thing. So Weasel, if you can hear me, let us know here. Yeah.
I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
we can indeed.
Yes,
we can indeed.
Beautiful Warlock.
Oh, hello.
Congratulations.
Was it okay? Griggs, was it okay?
Oh, you are amazing. You are a mage main, and you're welcome to the purple side. Okay, you did it phenomenal.
I mean,
you had
during
How
the
did
one
it feel
I thought
getting
I
the
messed a couple
loot?
things up, but
How did it feel when you were doing the heroics? You're seeing all this loot drop.
Stacked.
You're so stacked.
Yeah, was I?
Yeah, you were.
I mean, yeah.
In the raid. Yeah, besides the boomies. Yeah,
Like, you guys
you did
tell
great,
me,
brother. You were doing good damage. I saw the portals down. I saw the
big
gateway.
hitters, right? The very big hitters, like the weapon from Oculus or the trinket from Violet Horde didn't drop for me. But yeah, other than that, yeah, I guess my gear was pretty fine. Yeah, and then
What that staff anyway, no hit on it.
I got an offhand upgrade and a new chest and stuff. So, and I made
Well, it's kinda good
use of those.
Because that staff from Oculus doesn't have a hit on it, so you're able to get a good amount of hit from your weapon, right? So that kind of had to help you out a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, moving into the raids, you were very geared. You were actually exactly as geared as GX, which was the best geared Warlock in the Space Force team. They had two. You literally had the exact, like fully exact copy gear. But what do you think,
that's funny.
moving into the raids itself today, like what were some of the places you guys really excelled? Do you think there was any mistakes that could have happened, or really like where you could have pushed harder if you guys had a little bit more gear even?
So we had a very big pull before the Four Horsemen, right?
Huge.
I would
Where you
love
got
to say
bopped.
that was planned in exactly the way we wanted it to be, but it wasn't. Like, that was not planned. We only wanted to pull 2 groups, but then we ended up pulling like all 3 that we still needed to do. But then we improvised, and that's like one of our strong suits, right? When stuff goes wrong, we usually find a solution, and so yeah, that pull was bigger than we wanted it to be, for example.
What was the difference maker in that poll?
Just using all kinds of cooldowns, right? Raid sec, taunts, and the bob for me, for example.
Yeah.
Did you
I
do
think
AoE
a
taunt
few
there?
peop-
That's my question,
Yeah, well, I
right?
was about to
Did
say
you?
that. I think a few people thought that I did it, but I didn't. No, I didn't.
Yeah, I was like, huh? Windforce was he was teeter-tottering. He was going back and forth on his HP for a bit. I was
It
scared.
was scary.
How was
Yeah,
comms
it is
when
certainly
Shine
scary.
died? When Shine went down, how was your guys' comms?
Silent, just calm. Shine was, saying a couple of words about how he messed up, but we don't go crazy there. But yeah, that was his mistake. Shine, you messed up.
Oh, he knows.
It would have
We're
been a
not mad. We're just
complete immortal
disappointed.
run, right? Shine was the only death at all,
Yep.
Yeah.
and that was.
It's okay. Space Force also had a death, but they didn't have the death on the boss, so they did get the immortal title, which is a little bit of bragging rights. You guys did phenomenal here. I was curious, how well do you guys do with like raid leading, communicating with the rest of the raid, especially on something like the Gothic pulls where Stead is ahead on his pet, bringing things into you guys right before Four Horsemen. Like you said, a lot of times you're calm and able to kind of delegate. How does Progress as a guild kind of deal with things as they're going on throughout a raid?
Yeah, so throughout the whole raid, like it's pretty silent, and we only have like a couple people doing the talking, like our raid leader Xander and Ghosting. They do a lot of the talking, and then Stead, as the hunter who does all the pulling and stuff, he says whatever is happening and whatever everything that's coming, and whenever he needs someone to do something to him. It's mainly those 3 people who do the talking, and then of course Windforce as the main tank.
Are you
Apart from that, it's pretty silent throughout the raid.
Are you guys like a put on music and just game type guild?
I think that just depends on the player. I
Do
believe
you
we do
listen
have a
to
couple of
music?
players who blast their music in the background. Shout out to Kia. But yeah, like I myself, I play without music. I play with in-game sounds, and I like that better.
Yeah,
full focus.
100%.
Yeah. Looking towards your guild composition, like you guys did bring the double Death Knight, and you guys talked about moving towards Horde. How do you feel that is going to be a difference moving into phase 1 in general or throughout Wrath of the Lich King? Do you think you're going to really shine and stay as the Alliance guild, and you stay on top of kind of Classic, as you've always been the #1 guild for the most part in Classic World of Warcraft?
We'll certainly try to be that, right? Try to hold up the flag of the Alliance and do as best we can.
Thank you for
Certainly
that.
the horde racials give them usually a little bit of an edge. But yeah, I mean, we started as alliance in classic because we thought there might be advantages there. But now our whole guild community is so big, it would be a massive undertaking trying to move over to the horde. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some guilds did it. Some guilds did it for Wrath of the Lich King, even, or for the Burning Crusade. Even I know that like some guilds, like Noda, as you would know, have fully re-rolled over. But you guys are sticking to the alliance and gonna just showcase kind of the skill, like play style and strategies versus actual like any sort of weird in-game advantages you might be able to utilize, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I know Hula has an intriguing question for you, so I'll let you give this one. Hula Hoops, go for it.
So yeah, Weasel, very curious. You know, this was the very first time that we've seen a WoW esports competition for Classic in the PvE scene. We do have an arena competition coming up soon. Oh, we replay of Shine Dust there. But very curious, you know, as one of the best speedrunning guilds in the world, you know, as also a guild that focuses on the race to world first in Classic as well. So you guys do it all. What are you hoping to see for the future of WoW esports in Classic?
Well, you know, this was a very first event, right, for Classic, and I think it's been a long time coming, right? Us as players, we've been hoping, you know, for years, you know, during Classic and during the TBC times, we were always like, man, would be so great if we could, you know, have an event like this. And now it was finally here, so we're very thankful to even be invited to this, and I think it's a very cool thing. So we're just hoping to see more of this.
Yeah, thank you
Same.
guys so much for participating. I think the entire community is really excited on the entire prospect of actual esports events with this. And if there's some sort of tournament, is there anything you would like to see kind of in the future, like moving on in some sort of speedrunning tournament, how this could like just kind of improve the experience for you guys as well?
So first of all, overall, I think you guys did a great job with everything, with the whole organization. So that was great. The one thing that personally I would like better would be if we could do this, you know, with our full 25-man stack. So a 25-man tournament with you know, seeing all the classes being represented, hopefully in those runs.
Mages, huh?
I couldn't bring my
Mages?
mage, unfortunately, for
Mages?
this one.
I think he'd be a warlock again, right? 100%. You'd be a warlock again.
Oh man! After this
trying,
one,
man.
The warlock grew on me a little bit, but
There we go. I like to hear that.
we'll see.
Yeah,
You're just waiting for Fire Mage. We know.
Yeah, absolutely. Waiting for the Fire Mage the time to shine. Yeah, that actually, before we let you go, and thank you for being here and spending the time with us, what would be like the rage you are personally most excited for, maybe with what you're seeing in your guild, but like what aspect of this expansion are you most excited to see in Wrath of the Lich King? And yeah, just let us know what you're looking forward to with this expansion.
Well, I'm a pure raider, right? So I'm seeing this from a ratings perspective. So Udua coming out, and then seeing the speedrunning scene in Udua, how that meta will develop with, you know, including the hard modes and all of that. I think that could be really interesting. And then, of course, ICC with, you know, when we go toe-to-toe with the Lich King. That will be very exciting. And, you know, especially for myself as a mage, I'm very looking forward to wearing full tier 10 and the gear we get
Blasting.
then, because that's when the Fire Mage will come out the strongest, hopefully. But yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah, warriors have entered the chat. Shadowmorn, hello. But that'll be a ton of fun. Thank you so much, Weasel, for being here. Congratulations again to you and all of Progress for winning this very first competition, the Undying Challenge competition. This was phenomenal.
Can I say one more
to
thing?
watch. Absolutely.
Well, I just want to say thank you and GG and fair play to Space Force. They were a pretty tough competition, and it was a hell of fun racing against them. And so thank you to Space Force for the fun race.
Yeah, I got to say, phenomenal job to both teams that competed today. That was extremely close. That was great to see. So hopefully we will see a lot more from both of you guys in the future. And is there anywhere that you would like to plug for people to check you out yourself at all, just for anyone that wants to watch you in the future?
Yeah, for sure. So speedrunning season is coming up soon, right? And just a couple months ago, I started streaming our streams for our raids from my perspective, and that will be on Twitch TV/MJ Weasel.
MJ Weasel, guys. Michael Jackson Weasel.
Right now.
Or Michael Jordan. I like Michael Jordan better.
He's literally streaming right now.
Hey,
He's
I'll
streaming
take
right
that.
now.
Yeah.
I
love it.
Right now, yeah.
Go follow.
Yeah. Thank you so
whoever
much
wants
for
to
being here,
follow,
man. Congratulations.
It's well appreciated.
I like how
guys,
you pop
watching,
on your
make sure to
bars.
follow
It's a
that,
warlock.
yeah. Just so he knows.
Yep.
It's ready.
You did great, Weasel.
You did phenomenal.
Thank you.
Brought it home for the Warlocks. There we are.
He was topping overall as
Did
well,
well.
I believe, for his raid.
I'm looking at the overall. Overwhelmingly overall top damage. So you did well, brother.
Yeah, looking at the overall damage, Crix, did anything surprise you? And one more time, just before you leave, thank you so much, Weasel, for being here. Thank you so much for the interview, and massive congratulations on everything that you guys pulled off today.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having us.
Looks like the overall for both raids are Warlock, so that's not surprising at all. Let me see. So for progress, it's Warlock and then Hunter. No, yeah, nothing surprised me really. Warlock, Hunter, everything is pretty close in comparison to like Space Force, where they had Warlock, Enhancement, Rogue, Boomy.
He was Warlock DK
I thought the
Hunter.
Boomies would do a little more on overall, but I don't know
Yeah,
how
they got
they're
to
doing their
decurse a little bit, you know.
Yeah, and if they're they need in that gear, their mana's bad. It's like 4.5k lower than what it would be in like previous or something. So
and I don't think they're innovating out to the people who respect.
Exactly.
So yeah.
So if they don't, pretty much. But yeah, Warlock's topping. That's
Team
not
players.
surprising, right?
They're team players.
Warlock gang. You know what?
Yeah, but we
noticed-
saw some crazy strategies from both teams. Is there anything that really surprised you, Hula Hoops? Anything that you want to note on from these runs today?
I mean, obviously, I've been looking at this entire race from the healer perspective. These healers blew me away. All four of them. They played tremendously well. The main thing I was watching going in, based on the gear levels they had, was how they were going to be able to manage their mana. As a team, they managed their mana tremendously. Obviously, they had some help with the innervates. Like I said, Boomkins, team players, good job. But it was just tremendous watching them all keep everyone up. Both of the deaths we saw on both sides, neither of that was a lack of healing. It was just
not healable at all. They were instant.
That was unhealable. It was just an overwhelming pull, and he just
that doesn't stop people from blaming the healers.
Obviously.
Always
the
hate
fault, everyone.
Healer.
But no, all of these healers they just did a fantastic job. I was so impressed, and I'm so excited to watch them when the speedrunning season really kicks off here.
Yes, I'm excited as well. Cyrene, is there anything that you're like, what takeaways from today are the most exciting and promising for kind of even the speedrunning season, or just what are you really excited about after we saw this competition today?
So Wrath of the Lich King, it's kind of no secret that it's the AoE expansion. This is where every class in the game gets AoE. Rogues have it now. Shadow Priests have it now. Boomkins have it in absolute spades. So this is the expansion where you're going to be seeing more giga pulls than ever before. So that's what I'm really excited about, is just gathering everything up into a nice little ball that I'm tanking and then just having everybody spank it. And that's my favorite part of this expansion. I'm looking so forward to when we get to do these big pulls. That is the thing that I love, is those high risk big pulls, right? You saw Quasic die trying to do one, right? That's one of those things where you just sit there afterwards and you're just like, how could I have done that better? And that's the moment I love, is where you think when you have a failure and you're just like, how could I have done that better? And then you can do it again next week or on PTR, etc. You want to make a lot of mistakes so that those things don't happen live, right? That's a lot of what speedrunning is just messing up over and over and over again while you try stuff. And then you can make sure that you basically never get it wrong, right? It's the whole an amateur does it until they get it right, and a professional does it until they can't get it wrong. So you want to have enough repetitions that you can never mess up what you just did. And that's what I love about the speedrunning is those big pulls, that high risk. Even if it's a low reward, it's rewarding for me. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've never seen you as excited as you were today. We've been doing we have a few podcast episodes we've done together, and you were Sart's always excited, right? This is his. You already know this is his content. This is his main content. He's going to be excited. You were next level excited, and that was exciting to see, bro.
So I love seeing these classes, like especially the prop warrior and the prop paladin, come out and do these things. I love gigapulls, and I think that one of the things that we missed out in TBC was we didn't really have a lot of gigapulls. Right, there weren't really a lot of
didn't allow you.
A lot of paladins pulling things together. Right, there's a lot of trash skips of things, but when it comes to Wrath of the Lich King, with the changes to the Warcraft logs requiring basically all trash before first boss, all trash after first boss that patrols in a normal route, and then all the trash in whichever route, if there's multiple ones, has more trash. That's the one you have to take. We're going to be seeing people try to cleave stuff down like there's no tomorrow. And that's one of the things I'm really excited about here. I love seeing that damage come out, and nobody's being left out this time. I'm not playing like a rogue on the sideline, just like hitting one thing at a time, waiting for Blade Flurry.
Blade Flurry once every 2 minutes. It was sad.
Wow.
So now everybody gets to have a little bit of the fun pie there, where they get to have some AOE.
Yeah.
I will say,
go on, Crix. Yeah.
I was going to say how you guys blame healers. I am the first person to blame a tank. No, I don't care that I sent 3 seeds over your shoulders before you got there. If I go down, I'm tank aggro. I'm yelling aggro top of my lungs, even though I know 100% that was my fault. I just wanted to say that part.
You go like any taunters. I'm like any boppers. Like
right. Oh yeah, I do yell paladins now too. I'll open mic. I'm like beep.
Yeah, there you go. Blame the
when
healers.
You see me in form, can I get a bop, bro? Like that's all I need is a bop, and then it eliminates all this. It's not about me waiting.
Did you not see sacrifice? Hello, like what? Yeah. Whenever you die and you over aggro and you have paladin tanks, you're like, were you not paying attention? What? I
demon
was.
next to you, the demon touching your thigh. Can I get a bop?
Yeah. Well, this was absolutely phenomenal, and I'm so excited that Blizzard has really gotten behind this challenge. And for everybody watching, I thank you all for watching. This was so exciting to see a final speedrun competition really happen. I'm curious about everybody's like favorite moment today, what you really want to take away from this and where we could see this leading towards in the future. So I'll just go a full round table, starting with you, Hula Hoops. What do you think could happen in the future? What was your favorite moment? What are your best takeaways from this? And then we'll get to you right after. Crix, yeah, I see you excited down there.
You know what? I'm going to let Crix take it away first.
All I want to say out there, gentlemen, ladies, is this was the Undying Challenge. Round 1 of what Blizzard's attempting to do an esport for us, which is fun. Yes, it wasn't the same Undying as it was in game. That doesn't matter, in my opinion. These are the rules of the rules we're adding a timer to it. Okay, I think it was amazing. I think it'd be way better with 25 man. Obviously, everybody was. This was kind of like a test to see it. A 25 man. This had good reviews. That's like we can get an old to our race, an ICC race, put the top 10 in there and have them race, and we're going over here and looking at everybody. Like this was it. Like this is the beginning of something. All I want to say. And I love you guys. Thanks for watching. And the mod team, good job modding whoever's modding Twitch. You guys are hats off.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Crix said and what Weasel said. I see this as just the beginning. There is a future for WoW Esports and Classic in the PvE scene. The speed running, it's kind of gone under the radar for too long, and it is just so exciting. The tech that these players bring, the hours they put in, the hard work, the practice, they are phenomenal players. And I'm super excited to see. I've noticed no one has mentioned TOC. Hello? We keep like Ulduar, ICC, we're skipping over an entire raid here, team. And I agree. Ulduar,
there's no trash
in the history of the
you
game.
can't speed run.
Ulduar has been my favorite raid. I'm excited for Ulduar, and I think it's going to really lend itself more to this type of speedrunning in a competition, in an esport, in a 25-man raid. And, I don't know what they're going to do with this whole gearing requirement because War is a much longer raid, so we might not need to create this artificial difficulty. There's just so many possibilities. I'm so excited. I am just hyped for, these challenges to continue going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, my favorite thing today was when they started doing those gigapulls. You know me. I love those shockwaves. I love that Fairlina gigapull. That's my favorite one, man. That just sends me back. I always love seeing that. And especially now with the Prot Warrior. I'm a little sad, Prot Paladin didn't do it, but it did save some time there, and you saw they were neck and neck for a very long time. So yeah, I'm always happy to see those big pulls. That's the thing that gets me really excited.
Yeah.
Well, scary
the
because
the craziness we saw between the two guilds and what their gear was actually made a quite significant difference. And so then if we see more tournaments end up happening, we will see potentially, if there aren't the artificial gear settings, then people will be able to go in on an exact equal footing, maybe with large teams, and go head to head. We're going to see some craziness. And that doesn't necessarily mean what we saw today, like you were just saying, Zyrene, is that Prot Warrior is behind at all by any means, because Warriors tend to be the most gear reliant class in World of Warcraft Classic. They scale phenomenally well. So we'll see how that really tracks towards the later ends of the speedrunning in this phase. Crix, you had something to mention?
No, it was nothing important. I think you just covered it, brother. I was just going to talk about more Warlock stuff. Just keep going. Just ignore me. Just go. Just take it away. It's that pool on Fairlina you're talking about. You know how you had the big pool and then Fairlina? And then on my Boomy and my Warlock, I'm like, well, do I want to blow Starfall and meta on the Trash Pack, or do I want to save it for Fairlina? Of course, I'm trying to pad, so I save it for Fairlina, but that's all I was going to say. Nothing important.
Yeah, a lot of that cooldown usage will be huge overall, adding up for speedruns. And again, I do want to give a huge shout out to both of the guilds that competed today. Progress, congratulations on winning SPACEFORCE. It's consistently one of the two. These are the two top guilds in the entire world in World of Warcraft Classic. If anyone's watching and isn't really a huge part of the speedrunning scene, you will see a lot coming out from both of these guilds where they will both be fighting for these world records. And you also see Zyrene over here coming out with a lot of new strategies, so make sure you're always watching for that, because that'll be always really, really exciting. I'm very excited, and thank you, Blizzard, for putting on this Undying challenge. This was absolutely phenomenal. I definitely want to say, if you're watching on YouTube or Twitch, let us know in the comments what you want to see in the future, or let us know anywhere that we can see what you want to see in the future from any sort of these speedrunning competitions. But thank you all for watching.
Bring noobs.
This is really awesome.
A lot of fun.
Yeah,
this was a lot of fun.
And we also,
it's like crazy.
We do have around the corner, guys. I do want to make sure you all know that the arena tournament is happening around the corner, and it's open sign up, so you can register today. The signups close on the 28th of this month, so make sure you check it out at blizz.ly/wrathcat or waddlecat. Why cat? Because everybody loves cats. Okay. Everybody loves cats.
Lich King Classic Arena Tournament.
Come on.
Yeah, cats. No, it's because of cats, and Mr. Bigglesworth is making his way into the arena. Make sure you're there. Good luck to everybody that signs up for this tournament. It will be here again live on the World of Warcraft, or on the Warcraft channel on Twitch, as well as the Warcraft channel on YouTube. So make sure to be here. I want to give a huge thank you to all of the casters here today. Zyrene, Hula Hoops, Crix, thank you for being here with me. Thank you all for watching. One more time, my name is Sarth, and we are so excited for speedruns. And also make sure you pay attention, because Dragonflight, the next expansion for retail, is right around the corner. So we're going to see some amazing things come out on all fronts from the Warcraft team, and I'm really excited. If there's anything you guys want to add towards the end, just to throw it back to everybody watching, anything you have to say for the guilds or anything else, I'll throw it to you, Zyrene, to give anything you have left.
Honestly, I was just completely flattered to be a part of this and invited. So shout out to Blizzard. Hope we do more in the future. Also, just esports for Wrath of the Lich King Classic. We're seeing the arena side of it. We're seeing the PvE side of it. I just think there's so much that we can do here, and I'm really happy to see what happens in the future. I'm so excited. So thanks for also sharing this with me, Crix, Hula Hoops, Sarth. Guys, absolute pleasure casting with you guys.
Yeah, that was a blast. Hula, do you have anything left to say towards the people watching today?
Just thank you, everyone, for being here this weekend. Thank you to the guilds, Space Force, and Progress for putting in the time, putting on a tremendous show. Blizzard is so excited to see Wrath Classic in the esports scene, and definitely going to be checking out the Classic Arena Tournament. That is going to be some great games. And Dragonflight, pre-patch, this week's reset. I'll be on my Demon Hunter. It's going to be a good show.
Mythic Plus is back on the menu, boys. Crix, hit him with it, my brother. What else do you have to say for everyone today?
I love you guys. And we all appreciate you guys watching. You're my casters, Hula, we just met you, but you're beautiful and we love you. Sarth, I love you. Irene, we're on the same server in competing guilds, but like love each other, which is amazing. Okay. I'm happy to do this with you guys. You know I am.
100%, man.
Oh yeah. By the way, if I can just self-plug, me, Irene, and Sarth have a classic podcast that we do called Classic Life. We do it every week. It's on, just Google it on YouTube or whatever, and you'll find it if you want to keep in touch. Everything WoW news is going to be there right away.
Yeah, thank you guys all for watching one more time. Shout out to the guilds that played. Thank you all as the casters. Phenomenal job. Thank you, Blizzard, for having us. And we're looking forward to any sort of WoW Classic esports in the future. We'll see you guys all on the next one in the Arena Tournament and out there in Dragonflight.
The first kill goes to me. Anyone